All right, y'all. What's going on? What's going on? What is going on? What's happening to each and every last one of you? Thank you for being in the building. It's greatly appreciated. Welcome back to another episode of Say Life Podcast. It's been a minute since I've done one of these, but today we gonna get through it. Why is my lip so red? I gotta tell my wife bite my lip and shit. Anyway, what's going on with y'all? Hope all is well. Now, for those who remember, those who have not been drowned out by all of the social media lore of the Nolan Wells case, and those who completely got lost within the sauce about the whole Carmelo Anthony case, which I'm so glad that that case is finally over. It's still ongoing because they filed a new motion, and apparently they're supposed to have a new date coming up. We're going to be covering that a little bit as well. But the world was shocked and rocked asunder a little while ago, and it was brought on by one by the name of Tyler Robinson. Now, when Tyler Robinson decided to do what he did on that fateful day in Utah, he decided to assassinate one by the name of Charlie Kirk. Now, when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, it was a multitude of people that flocked to social media in celebration of his death. And you had a multitude of people from different varying backgrounds of demographics who were really giving their 2 cents about the whole entire Charlie Kirk assassination and his career, what he's done in politics, what he's done in social speakings, what he's done in meetups, what he's done in gatherings, all this, that, and the other. People was painting a narrative that Charlie Kirk was a racist and that the things that he was saying were destructive to certain communities of peoples and stuff like that. But you had a very prominent voice who was really keeping the Charlie Kirk updates alive, and more so creating all of these different narratives for the sake of content and overstepping facts, or rather things that they assume to be facts. One of the biggest voices when it comes down to this whole Charlie Kirk assassination was Candace Owens. Now, recently, well, since this has happened, Candace Owens has been 100% grifting on social media in relation to the assassination of her friend. Now, some might be saying that this is grief, that she's being driven by what is being said in social media, her distrust in government, which I have no problem with that. People have a voice, they should be allowed to use it. But it's all about when people are in specificity, what Candace Owens has been doing surrounding this whole entire Charlie Kirk assassination is she's really been running up the check and gaining mass amount of support from her camp and from people within and outside of the social media spheres, whatever it may have you. What's going on, Sister Almond in preparation for your birthday? Happy early birthday to you. Appreciate you for stopping by, my brother, the BTSI show. Christopher J joining in. Appreciate it. He says facts over content. I like it. Appreciate you, big homie. YouTube, my folders in the building as well. Appreciate you for being here. And Joe motherfucking Cool says, dude, been hearing your name. I'm tuning in. I appreciate you tuning in, Joe motherfucking Cool. Where you been hearing my name, man? I ain't been live. I ain't been doing social media, specifically YouTube, for a little minute. So let me know where you've been hearing my name, man. I would actually be amazed by where my name is getting circulated. Rocky is in the bid. It says greetings and salutations. Appreciate you for being here. Hey, Tammy. Hope all is well. And she says, actually, it's today. So happy birthday to our sister Almond Eyes. I got to make sure I send her something for her birthday. It's greatly appreciated that you're here. Now, with that, you said I've been trying to figure out what's going on with her. Well, I know what's going on with Candace Owens. It's the same thing that was going on with a lot of content creators, and I do put that in air quotes, content creators who have been running up narratives and driving content in the hopes of growing their platforms. And it's been working. Don't get me wrong. You had the people who was running up the content and growing their platforms off of the Anton Daniels situation, the Carmelo Anthony situation, Corey Holcomb situation, and now the Nolan Wells situation. You still have a multitude of people who are running up the numbers and continuously diving their hand into the grift bag whenever it comes to a I hate Trump stream. You have a multitude of people who still diving their hand into the bag when it comes to the gender war, that grift. All this, that, and the other. You still have people diving into the bag of the political bag when it comes to grifting. What's going on, Adam? Hope all is well with you, my G. But recently, there has been a filing by Tyler Robinson's defense within the courts. And I think it's very important that we cover this because it goes against 100% everything that Candace Owens has been saying about this case. Now, Candace Owens have been doing a lot of question asking, right? Preachers, what's going on? He says, yeah, I used to watch her back in Trump's first term, but in the last few years, you can tell she has become more about what goes viral instead of facts. And that's the biggest problem, Preacher's wife. It has become a space of we got to get the content out rather than verifying and fact checking these things that we are saying. And it becomes dangerous when you're just spewing rhetoric without any type of substance, any type of data, any type of logic to back it up. And I don't want to coin the conspiracy theorist that I think that Candace Owens is. I wouldn't say that she's a conspiracy. I really want more so say that she's in grieving and she's using Charlie Kirk's assassination as a way to grow her platform. Call it a grift. Wasazi, what's going on? He says $300K to debate is wild. She charging $300,000 to debate. I mean, if you got to get paid for your lies, you might as well get paid well. If you're going to do something and you're doing it well, you might as well get paid for it. And if you're going to lie, you might as well get paid for your lie, right? Now, I've watched when Candace Owens goes live. And while her intro is rolling, I'm watching all of the super chats and the love and the streams being shared and all this, that, and the other. So many people flock to a Candace Owens live stream. You're talking about tens of thousands of people is up in that thing while she's sitting there and she's running up the emotional grift that people are falling into. What's dangerous about the whole entire thing is that when you sift through the minutia and you get past all of the BS that Candace Owens has been saying since the day that he was assassinated, you really start to find that Candace Owens either one doesn't know what she's talking about or she's doing this on purpose, which is dangerous. I want to play a few things before I really get into the topic. So make sure y'all subscribe to the channel, become a member. Yes, we are monetized again. So make sure y'all hit the super chat and or the cash app. Is however up to you, however you wish to support the channel. But let's go ahead and play this right quick.
I think John Bray's theory has infinitely more evidence than the story that we have been told by the prosecution, by the FBI, and by the Turning Point USA representatives.
So who is John Bray? For the last 10 months, podcaster Candace Owens has been spreading conspiracy theories about who killed conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Among all the theories she's peddled, one particular theory, the exploding mic theory, has outlasted the rest.
Did you see that exploding mic theory? Did you guys talk about that on here?
I've heard that theory, but I don't know if that makes sense.
It goes like this, that Kirk wasn't shot from a rooftop in Utah. Instead, these conspiracists say that he was killed by his wireless mic, rigged with a tiny explosive device and planted by his employees or security or Israel or something. And a man named John Bray is the mastermind behind it.
Now, there was this video that Candace Owens put out saying that Israel was responsible for the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and a lot of people fell into that. Then there was this narrative that was these Egyptian planes that circled the sky, or that took off immediately right after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Then there was this theory that y'all hearing right now about the exploding mic, not including all of the Twitter investigators and the YouTube specialists and analysts over on TikTok who's saying that the people in the crowd, there were agents, there were people who were employed by Turning Point USA who was responsible. They've drawn up 3D diagrams. They came up with hieroglyphics about who had an angle and a line of sight on Charlie Kirk. And Candace Owens ran with it. Not only did she ran with it, she blew it up to a point to where it caused so much disruption to where people was just flocking out the seams, and eventually someone just came down to it and said, yeah, well, I believe that Charlie Kirk is not even dead. I believe Charlie Kirk is alive. It's just like, okay, if that's what y'all want to believe, right? So let's continue to listen to this right quick.
Rifle shot was a ruse. The explosion was meant to replicate a rifle impact to the chest, and the neck wound was an unforeseen shrapnel impact.
Bray is not an expert. He owns a small farm store in Oklahoma where he and his wife make kombucha and beef tallow. But Bray has branded himself a forensics expert. He's conducted experiments in his shed, building these small explosive devices and putting them inside pig carcasses. And he used AI tools to vibe code a website with his findings.
I'm not a ballistic expert, but I don't think that there was much ballistics involved in this event. So the coding is something that anyone can do now.
Right?
So what's dangerous? What's going on? What's going on, Malcolm? What's happening, my G? What's Hazy says, I'm still waiting on actual receipts. Well, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but I got the actual receipt. And the actual receipt is more damning than any conspiracy theory that can really be put out there. Yeah, he tried to say, I'm not an expert, but I got the answer. If you're not an expert, then how can we take what you say as face value or evidence? But we have the actual filing from Tyler Robinson's defense and what was admitted to and what was said here. And I think this document itself, which this document just came out recently, this document itself should quell and quiet, or rather silence, all of these media narratives as to who it is or how it is that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. But again, when we're dealing with content over facts rather than facts over content, we find that people do not want the truth. They want to exist within this consistent state of guessing and guessing and guessing. We're seeing that right now with the Nolan Wells case. What's going on, C-Train? Hope all is well with you, my G. So let's take it back a little bit more while we get back into this here while we get back into this video.
This website looks pretty legit if you don't know what you're looking at. And there's just one problem: actual experts exist. And when I asked them to look at Bray's work, they all said that none of it made any sense. Still, Bray has appeared on numerous conspiracist podcasts, and his AI forensic slop theory is gaining popularity. Candace Owens is a true believer. Bray is just one of dozens of armchair detectives who've helped Candace build this alternative world and her bank account. And for months, I've lived in this weird world. I've watched their podcasts and YouTube videos, and what I found is a cottage industry of conspiracists led by Owens and her minions. They include an Alabama attorney, a stand-up comedian, a van life influencer, and a Kremlin-friendly podcaster. They cite each other, they monetize each other, and unbelievably, they are capturing the attention of millions.
As they should be doing. They should be capturing the attention of millions, because that's what you need to grow in your platform, right? Let's listen to some other things that Candace Owens has said.
Charlie Kirk may have actually been killed by his Rode microphone, which was rigged with an explosive. Now, I have always thought there was something there, okay? It was a theory that was at first posited by an ex-user named John Bray. And you should go down that rabbit hole. He has done so much work on this. Really, truly, he has worked on this since September. He brought it to my attention when we were the people who exclusively revealed the pictures from the inside of the SUV that carried Charlie to the hospital. And John Bray reached out to me at that time, and he said, hey, that's the piece of evidence that I'm looking for, the shattered plastic from Charlie's Rode microphone. Now, before we get there, let me at first back up and explain to you what this theory is, because there are probably a lot of people out there who are like me, like Ashley in the control room, who are just technologically challenged, right? Tons of people like us girlies who don't really care that much about how microphones operate and what styles and shapes they come in and what function they serve. I mean, if you don't work in tech, why would you know any of this stuff, actually? And so it's important to just always focus on the little details so you can follow along when we say Charlie's Rode microphone. So Charlie's preference was always, always, always to have a handheld mic. Okay, like this microphone, holding it on stage. Very simple. Same exact, same as me. So when we toured together, the two of us always requested two handhelds. So some of the reasons we kind of make the joke, you don't really know what to do with your hands. We like to move around a lot. We're expressive. And it's just nice to have a handheld mic in your hand. And then you only have to worry about one hand. And you often would switch the mic. It kind of gives you something to do with your hands. Now, at this particular event on September 10th, and we did go backward, and it seems to me that this new installment of him having two mics may have began during his fall 2024 You're Being Brainwashed tour. Ironically, the very first tour that I did not do alongside Charlie because of the increasing pressure that was coming from his Zionists. Once I got fired from the Daily Wire, I didn't bend the knee. And then Charlie started getting harassed by Zionists, and we had to put our tour on ice because he was getting attacked. Anyway, it was during that tour, as far as we can see, that suddenly Charlie started using not just his handheld, but also a wireless microphone on top of it. Okay, so we're circling here. You can see, I'm going to explain what you're looking at, but you can also see he's holding a handheld. That's two mics. They're functionally the same. One is wireless and one is a handheld. To be fair here, there could be some internal reason why they began to do this, but I can tell you definitively that it is not how it was always done. I didn't have two mics on me when I was touring at Turning Point USA. Now, there is a mashup video of Charlie's 2024 events, and you can actually see this. We're going to scrub through very quickly that he goes from just having his handheld to suddenly having that redundancy built in of two microphones. I'm going to show you that here. Here's the prove me wrong event. You can see he's got the handheld. He doesn't have the wireless mic clipped onto him. Here is you can scroll through to the second debate. Yep, here's another one. He's got the handheld. There is no, you can play that a little bit so they can see his arm move around if you want, Sky, that he doesn't have a microphone that's also being clipped onto him. And then you can see come 2000, at the end, the You're Being Brainwashed tour, we're going to scroll through here. I don't know when exactly this event was, but I do know this was his fall 2024. Now you see he's got a Rode microphone clipped onto him on top of the handheld mic, okay? What has been posited that exploded on him is that beeper-sized Rode mic wireless.
This is why I have to stop, right? I have to stop because once you listen to this enough, I can see why people would even start to believe it. Christopher J says, you say women don't care about electronics and microphones, yet you articulate this and give credence to an out-of-date narrative that women don't belong in these conversations. Damn it, Candace. Yeah, well, I mean, when you let them talk long enough, eventually they can't keep up the grift. Same thing that happened with the Carmelo Anthony case. Same thing that's going on right now with the Nolan Wales case, which we might get into that later. Let's continue.
Okay. That's what we are referring to when we say the wireless mic exploded. I'm going to now show you just a static picture of the wireless mic up close so you can see it. Okay. That's the Rode mic. And more crucially, there's a clip, a magnetic clip that is used to hold it. So that's the clip. And you can see in translucent here is the microphone. That clip is what you see on the outside of Charlie at the September event. That's a magnetic clip. It stays on Charlie the entire time. It never falls off of Charlie. Apparently, it holds an incredible amount of weight. So the actual microphone, the Rode mic, is on the inside. So that's something new as well. So they got the microphone, that's the magnetic clip on the back, and on the inside of that is going to be his Rode microphone. Assuming he was using Rode, I think it's Rode that he's using, but that's going to be that Rode wireless mic on the inside. I know that's a lot of explaining, but I feel like it really helps people who aren't into tech like me. It's also important to understand how, because if we're talking about an explosive, we talked about that yesterday, and people lost their fingers and they had shrapnel on their face. It's important to understand how could an explosion travel directionally, right? How could it be contained, so to speak, if it's not like a bullet? You're saying, okay, his microphone is rigged. You're saying it exploded. If you're like me, you're thinking, well, wouldn't that just go everywhere and cause severe burns to Charlie? Wouldn't we be able to see severe burns onto Charlie in the process? So I want to make clear to you is not necessarily, because this.
I hate people who don't have experience in things to speak about things. First of all, when dealing with projectiles, when dealing with explosive, you have to have a trigger, an ignition. You would have some type of burn marks, anything like that. Appreciate you for the jewels, Rocky. When it comes down to this microphone theory exploding on Charlie's chest, which projected into his neck, that doesn't make any sense. One, you would have scarring, you would have burning on his skin, and on top of that, there would be some scorchness on his shirt. There would be at least a shadow of something on his shirt. Also, if his Rode mic would have exploded, there would be tearing within his shirt. Nowhere in any type of evidence, or since they've been talking about it in the trial, has there been any type of mention of his shirt having any type of tears in it. So this whole idea that his Rode mic exploded would be BS. Now, what's dangerous is that she says, well, I don't have any experience in this, or I don't understand how this works. You don't understand how explosives works. You don't understand about bullet trajectory. You don't understand a lot. Even when it comes down to a controlled explosion, you would have to have a very precise, controlled, directional implementation to then lead specifically to his neck. Right. Wasazi says, how did it curve and hit his neck? That's the big part. The biggest problem is, because I don't want to play too much of the conspiracy theory aspect of it, is that when you get into this document here really does explain a lot, right? And I want to go down to specifically the argument, right? I don't care about the introduction. Yeah, well, you know what? It's kind of hard to see that way. Hold on, y'all. Let me do this. Let me put this on the screen. I think it's easier to see it this way. Yeah, it'd be easier to see it this way. Hold on. There we go. Much better. Get this out the way. Get this out the way. Let's do this. Put this right there. I don't care about that one. This is the one I care about. There we go. We're going to share this tab. That way y'all can be able to see it completely. Let me zoom in right quick. Get this out the way. Thank you. And let me know if y'all can see this on the screen. If not, I can go ahead and change it around a little bit. I can do like this. And I can do like this. And we're going to do this. No, not this one. Let's do this. Yeah, let's do this one right here. Put this over here and do like that. There we go. Much better. All right. Give me a second, y'all. Let me reconfigure this so y'all can be able to see it. What's going on? This one. There we go. Much better. Let me blow this up so y'all can be able to see what we're reading right here. Like that. And then I'll put my camera in front of it. There we go. Much better. All right. So y'all should be able to see now. Let me do it like this. All right. Much better. So let me scroll down and let me zoom out just a tad. There we go. So y'all should be able to see it now. All right. Cool. So I want to get to the argument. All right, so let's get to the introduction first. All right, so here it says on September 16, 2025, the state charged Tyler Robinson with the capital offense of aggravated murder and other lesser offenses. The state had over 10 months to investigate the shooting death of Charlie Kirk and to develop legally sufficient evidence that Mr. Robinson knowingly created a greater risk of death to another other than Charlie Kirk and the defendant, the sole aggravator alleged in the information, which in theory exposes Mr. Robinson to the potential punishment of death. Let's continue. The state's presentation of its evidence as to is this alleged circumstance an aggravation at the preliminary hearing in July of 2026 wholly fails to carry its burden of proof. The state's failure cannot in any manner be attributed to any orders by this court limiting its presentation, nor does it fall within Rule 1102C1. Because the state's presentation in support of this aggravating factor was not based upon hearsay evidence, nor did this court exclude any preferred expert testimony. In fact, the court did not exclude any evidence on this subject, and it did not limit the amount of time available to the state to present its case. I'm gonna do it like this. It's easier. Yeah, I'm gonna do it like that. Let me zoom in. There we go. There we go. That's much better. That's much better. Now y'all can see. Put a 1 in the chat if y'all can see this legibly. All right, there we go. Put a 1 in the chat if y'all can see this legibly. If y'all can see this, just let me know. I think that'll be better for everybody to be able to see and read, because I don't want people to think I'm adding words to it or taking words from it. All right, cool. That's better. All right. Yet the state has failed to establish probable cause that the shooter knowingly created a greater risk of death to another other than Charlie Kirk and himself. The state is required as a matter of law to show more than a possibility that someone else may be killed by defendant's conduct, rather that there was a high probability of that result and that the defendant knew of the high probability, and where the state has overwhelmingly failed to make this showing. It asks this court to expand Utah's narrow construction of the great risk of death aggravator using decades-old cases from another state jurisdiction. Binding constitutional precedent, both under Utah law and the United States Constitution, demonstrate the state's failure here and why this court may not impermissibly broaden the scope of knowingly created a greater risk of death. The facts in the law require this court to strike the sole aggravating factor. Now, here is the argument. The state has not met its burden to show probable cause by relying on hearsay deemed reliable by rule and violation of Mr. Robinson's constitutional rights and separation of powers principles. Appreciate you, Tracy. As briefed and argued extensively prior to the preliminary hearing and as raised as a continuing objection throughout the preliminary hearing itself, the state's extensive use of hearsay deemed reliable by Rule of Criminal Procedure 1102 violates Mr. Robinson's constitutional rights and separation of powers principles. This court may not bind over Mr. Robinson based upon the state's evidence consisting primarily of hearsay that has not been assessed for reliability. This is particularly true as it relates to the evidence cited by the state to establish identity for all of the charged counts. This evidence consists largely of alleged communications between Mr. Robinson and Mr. Twiggs. Now, for those of you who do not know who Mr. Twiggs is the boyfriend or who identifies as a trans of Tyler Robinson. And an identification of Mr. Robinson's from UVU surveillance footage. This evidence came from or became presumptively admissible through a recorded interview between the Utah County Attorney's Office and witness Lance Twiggs. A witness the court would not allow Mr. Robinson to speak to subpoena from another state to testify at the preliminary hearing. The state has failed to prove probable cause by reliable evidence that satisfies each element of each of the charged evidence. This court must bind over on all charges. So in other words, what they're saying is Because you cannot prove that anyone else was in danger of Tyler Robinson's actions, of which is firing that shot, then you should throw this case out, because you can't prove that anybody else is in danger. In other words, his defense is admitting that Tyler Robinson pulled the trigger that killed Charlie Kirk. Did everybody just hear what I just said? With everything that Candace Owens has been saying for the past forever, that there was all of these different theories as to how or who or what it is that killed Charlie Kirk, his own defense is admitting that Tyler Robinson is indeed the one that killed Charlie Kirk by shooting that rifle. Put a 1 in the chat if you caught that. Mr. Robinson, as a matter of law, the state has not established and cannot establish probable cause to support the aggravator that the shooting knowingly created a high probability of death to another individual from the single shot from a high-powered scope rifle from a rooftop vantage that hit the intended target. In other words, his defense is pretty much giving him, praise for actually hitting who he intended to hit, which was Charlie Kirk. Mr. Robinson is charged with aggravated murder pursuant to Utah Code 7652022A3, which requires the state to prove that the actor intentionally or knowingly caused the death of another individual under circumstances where the actor knowingly created a greater risk of death to another individual other than the deceased individual and the actor. The state has not shown and cannot show probable cause to support this single alleged aggravator. The defendant may only be found over for trial if the prosecution produces evidence sufficient to demonstrate probable cause that the charged crimes were committed and the defendant committed them. State v. Murphy. This threshold requirement is intended to ferret out groundless and improvident prosecutions, relieving the accused from the substantial degradation and expense incident to a modern criminal trial when the charges against him are unwarranted or the evidence is insufficient. As discussed further herein, the state's burden requires them to provide evidence to support a reasonable belief, and when the evidence, considered under the totality of the circumstances, is wholly lacking and incapable of reasonable inference, to prove some issue which supports the prosecutor's claim. In other words, y'all can't prove that someone else could have possibly been harmed or killed from that shot that he had shot. Now, you would have to need experts. There would have to be showing of proof that he has some type of training or anything like that to where he can gauge wind distance, wind speed, rotation of the earth, gravity. You would have to show proof that he trained to take this shot. The United States Constitution and the Utah Constitution both require courts to construe alleged aggravators narrowly. The 8th and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution do not permit imposition of the death penalty in an arbitrary or capricious manner. The objective of the law is to require that the discretion of a sentencing body in a capital case be carefully channeled by standards designed and applied to ensure that there is reasonable distinction between those murder cases in which the death penalty is imposed and those in which it is not. In order to bring meaning to this long-standing principle, the United States Supreme Court has explained that the Constitution requires courts to narrowly construe aggravating factors in order to avoid overly broad interpretation that violate the 8th and 14th Amendments. The United States Supreme Court has twice examined the KGRD aggravator at issue here. In Gregg, the court upheld the inclusion of KGRD as a statutory aggravating circumstance. The same year, in Profit versus Florida, the court upheld the use of KGRD as an aggravator based upon the Florida Supreme Court's decision, in which also construed KGRD narrowly. And Alfred KGRD was obvious because the defendant murdered two of the victims in order to avoid a surviving witness to the first murder. In each of these cases, the court considered whether the statutory aggravating circumstances was too vague and overbroad to pass 8th and 14th Amendment muster, and in each, the court upheld the aggravator because the state's highest courts had narrowly construed them. The principle that the death penalty may not be wantonly and freakishly imposed requires the state to channel the sentencer's discretion by clear and objective standards that provide specific and detailed guidance. As a result, a state's definitions of its aggravating circumstances, those circumstances that make a criminal defendant eligible for the death penalty, therefore play a significant role in channeling the sentencer's discretion. So far, what they're arguing for, and thank you for the support, Adam, appreciate it. He says, thank you for the stream, man, greatly appreciate you. So what they're arguing is that Tyler Robinson does not deserve the death penalty pursuant of the law, which the Utah's courts and the United States Constitution does not permit, because you can't prove that he was possibly targeting or potentially could harm anyone else. United States court decisions narrowly construing the KGRD aggravator required this court to strike it here. Over the course of the past 50 years, the Utah Supreme Court has had at least 3 opportunities to carefully consider the KGRD aggravator. In doing so, it has identified a minimum set of factual circumstances which must be present in order for the aggravator to be applied in a constitutionally valid manner. Mr. Robinson addresses here the 3 decisions by this state's highest court, which, when applied to the facts presented here, compelled this court to strike the alleged aggravator because those constitutionally required factors are not present. Those Utah Supreme Court cases are its decisions in State versus Sosa Hirato and 2 long-standing decisions in State versus Johnson and State versus Pierre. They are addressed below in chronological order so that this court can see how the doctrine which this court must apply in this case has evolved to require as a factual matter that where one or more firearm is used in a homicide, the defendant actually discharges multiple rounds, hitting and or killing individuals other than the murder victim in series of events. These actions are the concatenating series of events which the Utah Supreme Court first referred to in his 1997 decision in State versus Pierre, and then reaffirmed in his decision in Sosa Huerta 2, that may lead the court to conclude that the conduct alleged creating a high probability that someone other than the victim and defendant would be killed. Now, the problem that I have with this whole entire argument and what's being positioned and put out there by Candace Owens is that we have a full admission by Tyler Robinson's defense that he is indeed the one who intended to kill, who did kill, and who tried to cover up his killing of Charlie Kirk. And how it is that because of social media, mainstream media, and all of these people who just honestly did not like Charlie Kirk, how it is that they are trying to, in more ways than one, say, well, there's no possible way that Tyler Robinson is the one that's responsible for shooting and killing Charlie Kirk, when his own defense is admitting to the fact that they are the one that did it. And the sad part is that they will overlook this because they want to keep their narratives going, right? This is dangerous in so many accounts because you're seeing this happening now. It's bleeding over into other cases. Like I said, like with the Carmelo case, like with the Nolan Wells case, a lot of people are just coming up with all of these different narratives as to why it possibly can't do this, right? So the evidence presented by state fails to establish probable cause as to the KGRD aggravator. Primarily, Mr. Robinson must alert this court to a significant problem presented by the state's argument as to the facts established at the preliminary hearing. The state makes little effort to distinguish between the evidence it presented and inference it asks this court to make based upon that evidence. Rather, the state pursues an unconstitutional expansion of the KGRD aggravator to this case and fails to distinguish reasonable inferences from speculation, as the Utah Court of Appeals explained earlier this year in State versus Murphy. Furthermore, it is not appropriate to stack inference upon inference to satisfy an element of the offense. While inferences drawn from facts and evidence are appropriate, inferences drawn from inferences are not. And when evidence supports more than one possible conclusion, none more likely than the other, the choice of one possibility over another can be no more than speculation. The following is a recitation of the evidence presented at the preliminary hearing specific to this court's determination on the aggravating factor, and the state's arguments regarding the aggravator without drawing inference upon inference as the state asked the court to do. The afternoon of September 10th, 2025, several thousand people gathered in and around the amphitheater on the UVU campus to watch and listen to guest speaker Charlie Kirk. Mr. Kirk was struck by a projectile on the left side of his neck, and the injury resulted in his death. The shot was fired at 11:23 p.m. The best evidence of the events on September 10th, 2025 on the Utah Valley University campus are the videos. States Exhibits 12.1 and 12.4 are compilations of UVU surveillance footage from September 10th, 2025 at 5:33 of 12.1 and 12.4. Their surveillance depicts the roof of the Losi building and the walkway between the Losi building and the computer science building beginning at 12:20 p.m. At 6:18 of 12:4, the shooter is seen going over the railing separating the walkway from the Losi roof. Bagley, a little guardrail, probably about a couple feet high. Each of the videos then jump to 12:22:12 when a figure is seen running west across the Losi roof. At 12:25 p.m., the figure drops to the roof and begins to crawl to the western edge of the roof, going both south and west. The shooter reaches the edge of the roof at approximately 12:22:44 p.m., although additional body positioning on the ground is visible until approximately 12:22:56 p.m. Describing evidence of prone position and gravel on rooftop. Agent Hull testifying the shooter was prone for about 15 to 30 seconds. At 12:23:28 p.m., the figure gets up and begins running to the northeast corner of the roof and drops off the Losi building roof to the ground. Officer Bagley observed shoe print in grass where individual observed jumping from roof. OW Teddy says, bro, you can't be this slow. No, well, I mean, I could tell you this much. When the shot first happened and when we first covered it, I initially said, well, when it comes down to it, that boy shot that man. Simple. All of these different conspiracy theories of how it is that he possibly died and that the Israel is responsible and Netanyahu was responsible for this and, oh, the microphone exploded on his chest. No. OW says, wasn't a shot. Jay says, what shot? We're getting there. Exhibits 12.1 and 12.4 show the shooter was in position on the southwest corner of the Losi Center roof for approximately 35 to 44 seconds. Officer Bagley testified that there is a clear line of sight between the tent and the top of the Losi Center. Exhibit 7 depicts the shooting of Mr. Kirk from behind the individual asking him questions, the questioner, immediately prior to the shooting. So y'all keep saying, what shot, right? I'll holler at you later, OW Teddy. You say you can't place a gun there. I'm not placing the gun there. His defense is placing the gun in his hands. The defense is the ones that's putting the guns in his hands and the bullet in Charlie Kirk's neck. I'm not doing any of that. I just know what we saw. I know what we heard. And now that they're admitting to it. So let's continue. The questioner is separated from Mr. Kirk by a barrier, a patch of grass of unknown dimensions, a table, and a space behind the table in front of Mr. Kirk. Mr. Kirk is sitting in a chair on an elevated platform that is centered on the backdrop. The shot occurs at 32 seconds of this video. So while y'all keep saying what shot is right there. The shot occurs at 32 seconds in the video. Okay, cool. Says there is one individual seen to Mr. Kirk's right and behind Mr. Kirk under the tent. This individual is on the opposite side of where the bullet struck Mr. Kirk. The video has no timestamps. States Exhibit 8 begins with Mr. Kirk in the courtyard throwing hats to the members of the crowd. The video has no timestamps. Beginning at 32 seconds, States Exhibit 8 depicts Mr. Kirk seated at the table under the pop-up tent with the same questioner visible in front of Mr. Kirk. There are what appear to be two security personnel in front and diagonal to Mr. Kirk, standing in the grass area by the barrier seen in Exhibit 7. The camera recording Mr. Kirk is visible above and behind Mr. Kirk in States Exhibit 7, meaning the camera is angled downward. The shot occurs at 48 seconds in this video. For those of you that keep saying there was no shot, then please tell me why it is that the defense, and this is what the defense put out, why is it that the defense is admitting that there was a shot? So for all of you who don't want to be in the chat that keep saying what shot and you can't this and you can't that, what else is producing the shot unless there was a gun? Shout out to Brother Omni. He says, I'm convinced Charlie broke Candace off some of that parsnip because she's going way too hard with the conspiracy. Facts. Let's continue. One of Mr. Kirk's security guards comes into frame from the right of Mr. Kirk 3 seconds after the shot. States Exhibit 9 is UVU surveillance footage from behind the pop-up tent that begins at 12:21:14 p.m. The moment of the shot occurs at 2:13 in the video. Confirmed in testimony from Agent Hull, no one is immediately behind the center of the American Comeback pop-up tent when the shot occurred. It is also self-evident from this video in States Exhibit 7 that no one can see through the back of the pop-up tent. Agent Hull says you would not be able to see through it. Agent Hull testified that he can't answer what would have been visible to the shooter on the Losi Center roof. Finally, States Exhibit 6 depicts 22 seconds of the event from the perspective of witness AW. There is no timestamp on the video, but based on the content, it appears to be taken close in time to when Mr. Kirk initially sat on the elevated platform under the pop-up tent. The state's forensic investigator, Agent Jennifer Falmuina, testified that the distance of the slope between the roof vantage and the pop-up tent was approximately 415 feet. Agent Falmuina also testified that the elevation difference between the bottom of the amphitheater and the Losi roof was approximately 68 feet. So he had a 68-foot clearance to make that shot. Finally, Agent Falmina testified that the distance without consideration of the slope between the 2 points was 410 feet. So he had a 410-foot shot with a 68-foot clearance. You have a very small window to make that shot, right? A Mauser Model 98 rifle was recovered in a wooded area across the street from the northeast corner of the Losi Center, where the individual ran after jumping from the roof. The rifle was a .30-06 caliber with a scope. The rifle was a bolt-action rifle. In order to load it, lock it, as well as extract anything that's in the rifle, the user has to manipulate the bolt. When law enforcement manipulated the bolt, the rifle had a fired cartridge case inside and 3 unfired cartridges. The fired cartridge case was still in the chamber of the rifle. State's Exhibits 12-1 and 12-4 also contain video of an individual the state's witnesses identified as Mr. Robertson entering and exiting campus parking structures 4 times on September 10th, 2025. Let me catch a few of y'all chats. Jay says August 26, most recent, on August 11, 2026, defense attorney submitted a 41-page brief asking the judge to strike the sole aggravating factor required for a potential death penalty sentence. Arguing prosecutors failed to prove the shooting created a high probability of death to others. There's no need to discuss it with you because you believe everything white people put on paper. The Native Americans know white men words are written on water. You don't understand. What? What the hell does race have to do with this? Can anybody in the chat room tell me While this man, O.W. Teddy, is bringing up race when we're talking about this topic. I'm really not understanding what's the point. Can somebody in the chat help me understand why is this man bringing up race or what the hell race has to do with this? He says white people lie. O.W. Teddy, everybody lies. White people lie. Black people lie. Asians lie. Native Americans lie. Russians lie. Chinese lie. Everybody lies. Kids lie. Babies lie. Adults lie. Old people lie. Politicians lie. Presidents lie. Mainstream social media lies. Everybody lies. Why are you so... He says white people run the government. See, this is why a lot of y'all, right? Let me solo myself. This is why a lot of y'all are not capable of being able to see from a perspective of just a clear lens. Because a lot of y'all are stuck behind this whole racial identity argument. Oh, white people run the government. To say that white people run the government, you would have to show that it's only white people in the government. Preacher's wife says, because everything is about race, now it's really gotten city. Facts. So you believe everything they said about Kennedy too, right? No, I never believe everything that they said about Kennedy. Never have, never will. I have my thoughts about what happened to President Kennedy, but I don't believe the official report that came out about Kennedy. You said you're taking up for a white man. What does that mean? What does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. J-Man says hypothetical legal arguments not an admission. In their recent August 11, 2026 court brief, the defense argued that even based on the facts presented by prosecutors, the state failed to prove the specific aggravating factor required for the death penalty, that a single shot fire created a high probability of death to bystanders. Again, maybe you just got here, but I said that no more than 30, 40 minutes ago, that the state is admitting that this shot that Tyler Robinson put on Charlie Kirk was not a danger to anyone else because he intended to kill Charlie Kirk, in which he successfully killed Charlie Kirk. So their argument is not that he didn't kill Charlie Kirk. Their argument is that he didn't possibly or have the possibility to kill anyone else or harm anyone else. Anyway, let's continue, right? Right here. Twice before the shooting, once at the time of the shooting, and once after the shooting, a vehicle is seen matching Mr. Robinson's on campus. The first entry was approximately 8:30 a.m. with the individual state's witness identified as Mr. Robinson returning to his vehicle at approximately 9:25 a.m. Agent Hull testified that during this initial visit, Mr. Robinson went to the amphitheater area and spoke to some representatives from TPUSA. The second entry was at approximately 10 a.m. and Agent Hull testified that Mr. Robinson went to a Chick-fil-A and the Sorensen Center, walked to a wooded area across Campus Drive, and appears at the railing on the walkway between the Computer Science Building and Losi Center roof. Mr. Robinson left campus the second time just prior to 11 a.m. The individual identified as Mr. Robinson is next seen returning to campus in different clothing and walking with a limp at 11:53 a.m. According to Agent Hull, the individual he identifies as Mr. Robinson is seen walking in a parking structure in front of the Losi Center and then on the walkway between the Computer Science Building and Losi Center at approximately 12:15 p.m. None of the footage shows the individual identified as Mr. Robinson passing by or near individuals that are clearly minors. A search was later conducted of the residence Mr. Robinson shared with Lance Twiggs in St. George, Utah. In the closet on the first floor of the apartment, law enforcement found some shooting targets with perforations on it. Agent Falmina testified that the perforations were consistent with bullet holes. The targets show perforations outside the target, closer to the target, and then even closer with the perforation in the center. The communications the state admitted between Mr. Robinson and Mr. Twiggs indicate Mr. Robinson's intention to kill Charlie Kirk. Keep going, right? All I'm saying is you act like you're not questioning anything in this situation. You're just taking the government at face value. No, I'm not taking the government at face value. I'm using logic and understanding. I don't care about the extras. What do I care about? I'm gonna ask everybody in the chat this question since y'all keep on having all of these unmatrimonied arguments. Did Tyler Robinson kill Charlie Kirk? Let's ask that question. Did Tyler Robinson kill Charlie Kirk? Put 1 in the chat if you believe Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. Put 2 in the chat if you don't believe that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. Let's see where this goes. This is where it gets funny for me, right? J-Mom says you don't know anything. Got you. So, do you believe Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk? Edgar Snowman says 1. Tree says 1. Remember, 1 if you believe Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. 2 if you don't think he did it. According to his admission to multiple people, yes, preacher. That's literally what this comes down to. Did Tyler Robinson kill Charlie Kirk? Yes. Simple. So OW Teddy and J-Mo in the chat, I'm still waiting on your answer. Do you believe that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk? 1 or 2? 1 for yes, 2 for no. It's simple. You don't even need a long, drawn out. Deborah says 1 times a million. But it's funny that those who would type the most, right? All of these different chats that J-Mo and OW Teddy is putting in the chat, they can't answer a simple question. OW Teddy says 2. So, OW Teddy, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Tyler Robinson has admitted on multiple occasions that he is the one that killed Charlie Kirk. Why, in case, would you turn and put a 2 in the chat when he said it himself that he's the one that killed Charlie Kirk? Do y'all see the level of stupidity that we're dealing with? And I hope y'all see this blatantly. That even when someone admits to doing something, you would still have people like OW Teddy saying, no, I don't believe he did it. He admitted that he did it. Snowman says, why would you say you did it if you didn't? You said it's too deep for me. What do you mean it's too deep for me? The man said that he did it. Why would you take accountability for something that you didn't do? Or are you trying to protect someone? Okay, cool. So if Tyler Robinson didn't kill Charlie Kirk, who killed Charlie Kirk? I find it funny that J-Mo is not answering in the chat anymore, that now OW Teddy is. See, when I pay attention to the chat and I actually start reacting and responding to the things that y'all say, y'all get quiet. Because the Mossad made him. Oh, it was the Mossad that killed him. Got you. You said the government killed him. So the government killed Charlie Kirk. Okay, cool. Who from the government did it? Who was the one person from the government that was on the rooftop that did it? Because when you look right here, these is Tyler Robinson's words. I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I took it. That's what Tyler Robinson said. That's literally what he said. Not what anybody allegated, not what anybody suspected. That's what he said. He said, I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I took it. So please, by all means, what level of stupid do you have for us now? Okay, cool. I like silence. There's no mention of any threat or intended harm to any other individuals. So because you did not just put that in my chat. He says, read a book called Operation Mind Control by Walter Boward. So a book written beforehand is your evidence. I just got to believe some of you motherfuckers is just some of the most retarded people I've ever come into contact with. And I'm not trying to say that about anyone specifically. But when people put comments like that, J-Man says, shaking my head. That man really just put that in the chat. He says, read a book called Operation Mind Control. And then he says, I'm going to leave it there. So no proof, no logic, no substantial evidence, no argument whatsoever. And you're going by a book rather than what Charlie Kirk said himself. I mean, rather than what Tyler Robinson said himself. That's amazing. Says, I heard some of these people say this was all fabricated, like the messages, the letter, even the video of him admitting to it at the police department, that they set him up. Whew. Okay, let's continue. The court must reject the state's asserted theories as to how it has established facts supporting the KGRD aggravator because it has failed to establish the facts that are constitutionally required. The state offers two interrelated theories of KGRD that fail to conform to the criteria established by the Utah Supreme Court. Criteria which, if not met, render application of the KGRD aggravator violative of U.S. Constitutional Amendment. What's that? 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10, 14. And Utah Constitution, Article 1 and 9, each is deconstructed here. First, the state has propounded a line of sight theory, which is based upon out-of-state authority that has never been adapted in Utah. It was primarily based upon the decisions of the courts in Pennsylvania before that state enacted a moratorium. However, the state's reliance on this authority fails to support the application of line of sight formulation to the facts it presented at the preliminary hearing. The state's line of sight theory, as applied to the questioner to the east and below Mr. Kirk, fails based upon the facts the state presented to this court, and no further reasonable inferences based upon those facts can support that basis for the aggravator. The second theory is an everyone near argument, which relies upon only one of three factors identified in Sosa versus Hurtado, and ignores the other two factors which are not present here. Moreover, the state asks the court to speculate about the shooter's knowledge, even assuming that one can infer a knowledge of some risk to the shooter. The state has failed to show that the actual conduct created a high probability that someone other than Mr. Kirk would be killed, and thus this theory fails as a matter of law. Where there were people in some proximity to a discharge of a single projectile from a precision firearm with a high-powered scope, which the evidence establishes hits its intended target, the single factor of proximity fails to permit an inference of a subjective knowledge of the shooter of a high probability of risk of death to others. Where no other person was injured in a matter creating a great risk of death and no other shots were fired, the allegation of KGRD aggravator cannot be sustained. In other words, because he only shot once, he didn't intend to hurt nobody. No one else could have possibly been hurt. Okay. The state broadly argues that certain individuals were in the shooter's line of fire. There are two fatal flaws in the state's argument. One is factual, the other is legal. Factually, the line of fire assertion as to the questioner defies logic. The evidence established that there was one shooter on the roof of the Losee Center. Mr. Kirk was seated under a pop-up tent in the center of a courtyard in the southwest of where the shooter was positioned on the roof. Losee, directly east of the amphitheater, the single shot fired traveled from east to west at a downward slope into the bottom of the bowel where the tent was located. showing crowd at increasing elevation to the east of the pop-up tent. State's Exhibit 7 shows the vantage behind the questioner prior to and at 12:23 p.m. The questioner is in front of Mr. Kirk to the east. If the questioner had been in the line of fire from a bullet moving towards Mr. Kirk, the questioner would have been struck by the bullet as it traveled. So they're arguing the magic bullet theory. The magic bullet theory that they're arguing is that the state is saying that there was a potentiality for the questioner of Charlie Kirk, the person who was asking the question of Charlie Kirk, that he could have been hit because he was in the line of sight. The defense is saying that there's absolutely no possible way that the questioner could have been hit, in which I would actually agree with the defense on this. There was no possible way that the questioner of Charlie Kirk could have been hit. Here's the problem. Had he not trained to make that shot, had he not zeroed in that rifle, see, some of y'all don't think I know what this does, right? Says these steps are too deep for you. No, this is actually where I shine bright at, right? Because unless you have actual knowledge of how it is that you have to do these things and how it is that you end up in the result that you end up in, you couldn't go there. For instance, going back to my explanation of zeroing in a rifle, you don't just take a brand new, not for everybody that has rifle or firearm experience. Let me ask you a question. If you pick up a new weapon and has a scope on it, has a sight on it, do you just initially take that rifle or that firearm out and then try to shoot something and think that you're going to hit that target 100%? Especially if you've never fired that rifle or that firearm before, right? Prime example. Hold up. I got a prime example of this. I got a prime example of this. Give me 1 second, y'all. Hold on for a second. Be right back. One second, y'all. Let me take this out of this case. Hold on, y'all. Let me disassemble this damn thing first. Also, let me clear it and make sure there's nothing in it. All right, cool. There we go. All right. Put this back. There we go. 1 second, y'all. I'm almost done. All right. So let me solo myself out. Okay. Now, does anybody know what this is? Antibody. Does anybody know what this is? Right here. There we go. If you're a weapons person, you should know what this is. Yes, this is an optic sight, right? And with this optic sight, right, unless you zero this sight in, which that's amazing. If I put this right here, oh, that's sweet. All right, cool. Now, unless you zero this sight in, unless you know how to zero this in, if you was to pick up my rifle and to take a shot at, let's just say, a pop can, right, a soda pop can, unless you know what you're doing, you're going to miss, right? But this is why you have to zero rifles in. You have a top notch here, right there. You have a top notch right here, and you have a side notch right here, right? It's worthless without sighting it in. Exactly. It is an optic sight. Now, I have this scope zeroed into my rifle. Not only do I have this scope zeroed into my rifle, I also have my buttstock measured out exactly to what's comfortable for my arm length, right? So if I was trying to make a 150-yard shot, right now, my rifle can make a 150-yard shot. Just if I just put this back on my rifle and I go out to the range and I want to make a 150-yard shot, I can make it. I could just lay down, pick up my rifle, bang, I got it within 2 shots, right? Because I'm not taking in wind speed, I'm not taking in the rotation of the earth, I'm not taking in all of that, right? I'm just going out and I'm taking a shot, right? Because you also have to take in sea level, rise, depth, all of that, right? All of that good stuff. You know, for all of you non-shooters out there, for people who think I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But anywho, the most important thing about this is that you have this radial dial on here. This radial dial controls whether or not I am at like 2, 4, 16. For all of you gamers out there, you just click a button, you go zoom 2, zoom 4, zoom 16, right? You should be able to hit 100 to 150 yards with the iron sight, which I do have. But if I had to, just rely, let's say my sights was destroyed, I can be able to just use my scope. Hey, baby, I see my babies in the chat. What's going on, baby? How you doing? So, going back to this right here. What my baby say? Say, I'll leave you to yourself for 5 minutes. So, let me put this back in here. Now, I have a riser on my weapon as well, right? I have a Holosun HS403B 2 MOA LED, and I can't give you the number from that, right? But this riser also is in line with my scope. That riser already has a magnification on it. Along with my scope, I can see even further. And I even have the side adjustment on my scope right here, right? With my side adjustment, I just push in on this little button right here, which has caused that little prong to come out. I push in on that, and my scope flips to the side where I now can only depend on my riser, right? So, like what was testified by the agent, Tyler Robinson, there was targets found within the closet of his apartment on the first floor, which Tyler Robinson apparently have been practicing, okay? So to all of those that saying, oh, what shot? And you can't prove a shot. What we could actually prove is that he's been practicing. He's been practicing to shoot this rifle. He's been practicing to hit his intended target. So for those of you in this chat that has all of your different things that you want to say, you sound dumb. But anyway, let's continue. Right here it says, if the questioner had been in the line of fire from a bullet moving towards Mr. Kirk, the questioner would have been struck by the bullet as it traveled. In fact, the state's evidence shows exactly why the questioner was not in the line of fire. The single bullet came from above. Absolutely correct. The bullet was not in other words, the best way for me to depict this is the bullet's line of fire. I'm using my pliers here. The bullet's line of fire came like this. The questioner was here. So the bullet went over him, right? See, J-Man. I gotta update my stuff, J-Man. All right. If you want to help a brother out with a new optic, go ahead and hit the Cash App or the Super Chat. Greatly appreciate you. Those optics is expensive. Angry Snowman said, appreciate it. All right, so let's continue. It says the video evidence shows that Mr. Kirk was seated on an elevated platform and separated from the questioner by a security barrier. A grassy area and then tables surrounded Mr. Kirk on three sides. The bullet traveled at a downward angle and hit Mr. Kirk in the left side of his neck. Well, there we now have it, ladies and gentlemen. All of the conspiracy theories, all of the Candace Owens followers, the people who have even come into the chat to try to discredit or disprove whether what shot, well, there's your answer right there. The bullet traveled at a downward angle and hit Mr. Kirk in the left side of the neck. This is what the defense is saying. Where Mr. Kirk's head neck area was elevated in an unidentified distance away from the questioner, certainly more than a few feet away. The only evidence presented supports that the bullet traveled above, not through the crowd, which I agree. This court also must reject the legal theory behind the state's factual argument. The state asked this court to adopt its interpretation of out-of-state authority on line of fire theory. However, a thorough examination of the case, which construct a line of fire theory, are not, as the state suggests, and support that this court should not expand Utah's KGRD application. In Commonwealth versus Watson, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court considered the application of Pennsylvania's grave risk aggravator to a case in which Watson fired 3 shots into an occupied car, striking an individual twice. Watson then shot the lock off the door of a home, pulled his ex-girlfriend from the closet where she was hiding with her 2 children, and shot her twice. He then reloaded, left the room, returned, and then shot her again, and then shot himself. One of the shots lodged in the door frame around the closet where the children were hiding, but did not hit them. Under these facts, the Pennsylvania court affirmed a jury's findings as to the KGRD aggravating factor because the children were in the closet were endangered by his conduct. The defendant argued that there was not competent substantial evidence to support KGRD because the gunfire was intended only for one person. Shinny says, thank God. I know, right? The Florida Supreme Court disagreed because Sylvia engaged in indiscriminate shooting in the direction of at least 4 persons other than the intended victim, who were not only put in an immediate and present risk of death, but are also in a line of fire. One of the other individuals was shot and the defendant pumped the shotgun and aimed it at 2 others. We therefore conclude there was competent, substantial evidence that Sylvia's reactions created a greater risk of death to many persons. He approached the house while pumping shells into his shotgun. Pellets hit one of the cars in the carport, different locations in the carport, and the door from the carport to the house. Pellets were found inside the house in the kitchen, dining room, and bedroom. There were 6 unarmed people in the carport and house when Sylvia approached and shooting and pointing the gun at people. In Commonwealth versus Reed, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court found sufficient evidence to uphold the grave risk aggravating circumstances. Reed had fired multiple shots at fleeing children after chasing them in his vehicle. One of the shots hit a young man in the back, killing him. Less than a week later, Reed killed another individual with the same weapon. The court noted that 12 to 14 others were in the line of fire when Reed chased the boys while driving his car, and gunfire flashed from the windows of Reed's car, killing the first victim. These are just more arguments as to why it is that they're trying to uphold these. Let me go down to here. None of these cases support the state's position here. Each involves conduct directed at the endangered person. Consistent with the Utah Supreme Court's endorsement of the 3 zone of danger factors in Sosa Huerto 2, in determining if KGRD applies as a matter of law, this court must consider if any conduct constituting a great risk of death was directed at any individuals other than the victim. Here, there is none, which I would have to agree per the argument. Now, the argument that we're dealing with right now is that was, and I'm going to ask y'all in the chat, I'm going to ask y'all, Charlie Kirk's children were present at this event. Charlie Kirk's wife was present at this event. Several other people were present at this event. Just from what we have so far, and I'm asking y'all in the chat, was anybody else in danger of getting harmed from the one bullet that Tyler Robinson fired out of his rifle at Charlie Kirk? I'm asking y'all in the chat that question. Was anybody else in danger? Shinny says, no, you're responsible for the bean the very second it leaves your spoon. Doesn't matter where you wanted the bean to go, only where it went. Child endangerment repeatedly. What the fuck is a person? Child endangerment just because they were present and could have been hit. No, I can agree with you to that. Utah has never adapted an interpretation of KGRD that would permit its application where the firing of a single shot at an intended victim that hit only the intended victim merely because other people were in the vicinity. Nor does the state's reliance on out-of-state authorities in which personas other than the descendant are targeted and or injured support this proposition. As a matter of law, the court cannot bind Mr. Robinson over on this theory of the KGRD aggravator based on the facts presented by the state. The state's anyone near argument summarily fails both factually and as a matter of law. The state's second argument in support of the KGRD aggravator is that the shooter knowingly created a great risk of death to everyone near Mr. Kirk when a single shot was fired. The state's argument here also fails because it requires the court to speculate in the absence of evidence that would otherwise permit reasonable inferences. Moreover, the state's argument fails again as a matter of law because the conduct here fails to satisfy any of the three factors in the Utah Supreme Court has held must be present in order for the KGRD aggravator to be pursued in a matter which does not violate a defendant's constitutional rights under the 8th and 14th Amendments. The state asks this court to make a finding that the shooter knowingly created a high probability of a grave risk of death based upon speculation that is not supported by the evidence. The state speculates and asks this court to speculate that the shooter actually observed security personnel standing an unknown distance from Mr. Kirk. I mean, if you went across the walkway, of course you would have seen that there was other people there. Whether you knew that there was security or not, don't know. But what matters is the fact that there were other people there. That the shooter may have known that there were people behind the pop-up tent when the single shot was fired, although the state's evidence actually shows otherwise. That the shooter knew that they may strike someone other than the intended target because there were 4 cartridges found in the rifle. That the shooter knew that they may strike someone other than the intended target because targets with bullet holes in them were recovered from Mr. Robinson's shared apartment. And that the shooter knew that they may strike someone other than the intended target because the rifle may have been taken apart and put back together. These assertions are not reasonable inferences from the evidence actually presented, and in one instance are actually inconsistent with the evidence before the court. The evidence does not support that the shooter acted knowingly, that is, that the shooter was aware that there was a high probability that someone else may die from his single gunshot that hit the intended victim. As to the state's evidence shows that the presumed shooter was on the low-C center roof in a prone position for approximately 35 to 44 seconds before firing their weapon once. According to the state's evidence, this means that the shooter had approximately 40 seconds after coming to a rest to ready their rifle, acquire the target with the scope on the rifle, steady their breathing, and fire the weapon. The state asked the court to speculate about what the shooter saw through the scope during this limited window of time while focusing on these tasks. However, one of the state's case agents, Agent Hull, testified that he could not testify as to what the shooter saw. the only person that can testify as to what they saw through that scope is Tyler Robinson. Indeed, the only reasonable inference from this limited time window and the fact that Mr. Kirk was shot was that the shooter observed Mr. Kirk through the scope. The state's assertion that the shooter would have known that there were individuals behind the pop-up tent is not a reasonable inference supported by its own evidence. In fact, State's Exhibit 9 shows no one directly behind where Mr. Kirk was located when the single shot was fired. Okay. There's no one stood in the middle behind the tent. Moreover, the shooter could not, of course, see through the tent and again was on the rooftop vantage for only 35 to 44 seconds before taking a single shot with a high-power rifle with a precision scope attached to it and then immediately fleeing to the back of the rooftop area. The state relies on surveillance footage from earlier in the day, September 10th, to 2025, to suggest that the shooter had knowledge that there will be people behind the pop-up tent during the event. So what they're trying to argue here is what's going on, 666. What they're trying to do here is they're trying to disclude that there was no way for Tyler Robinson to know that there was nobody behind the tent, and by the own testimony from the witnesses, the agents, that there was no possible way that you could see through the tent to see if no one was there. That's what they're trying to argue. The state's evidence is that Mr. Robinson was on campus at 8:30 a.m. and went to the amphitheater at that time, 3.5 hours before the event began. The state asked the court to speculate that the amphitheater and the people around it looked to the shooter at that time, just as it did 4 hours later when the shot was fired, as depicted in State's Exhibits 6, 7, 8, and 9. There is no evidence from which the court can make such an inference, and again, the evidence is that the shooter had an extremely narrow window of time to observe the intended target through the scope of the rifle. The only reasonable inference that can be drawn is that the shooter saw the intended target, which I agree. Shinny says the barrel could have been moved 1/16 of an inch, missing Kirk and hitting anyone behind him. You assume there's dinner time behind a tent always at any event. That's a fact. That's a fact. And not to include weather conditions, wind speed, rotation of the earth, gravity. If he trained for this shot, it's a possibility. If he did not train for a shot, it's a possibility. Says Candy has gone off the rails. Well, this is why I'm reading this document, right? Because there's no possible way that Candace Owens can go back on her show and says that, well, we still believe the microphone exploded, or there was a Benjamin Netanyahu Israel connection, or that the Mossad killed Charlie Kirk. Well, we know that the defense is admitting that Tyler Robinson is the one that killed Charlie Kirk, after Tyler Robinson himself admitted that he's the one that killed Charlie Kirk. The state asked the court to speculate about the shooter's knowledge that he was creating a high probability that someone else could be killed because the recovered Mauser 98 had more than one round of ammunition in it. This is a circumstance in which the state cannot prove one inference is more likely than any other, and is thus asking this court to speculate. Well, that argument can be made whole. In the means of, had he missed the first shot, he now had 4 other opportunities to make that shot. Okay, I get that inference. It is just as likely that the shooter did not believe he would miss as it is that the shooter believed, as the state speculates. Having a loaded weapon does not mean the individual believes there's a high probability of missing and killing someone else. They're making a good argument for all 2A proponents, I'll tell you that much. It only means that they have the ability to fire more than one round. That's also true. I have... This carries 30 rounds. This magazine carries 30 rounds. Just because my rifle is loaded with 1 does not mean that I don't intend to miss. I intend to hit, but just in case I miss, I now have 30 other opportunities to hit my intended target. So I would agree with that. The facts here are that the shooter did not miss his intended target and did not chamber another round, leaving the spent cartridge in the rifle. The state argues that targets taken from Mr. Robinson's apartment support an inference that Mr. Robinson used the targets in connection with the shooting at UVU and therefore knew of a high probability of a risk of death to others. However, this court cannot reasonably infer that Mr. Robinson's alleged use of the targets at some point in time in the past with some unknown weapon led to such knowledge on his part. That's a fair argument. The state presented no evidence of when the targets were used, what weapon was used with those targets, the conditions under which the targets were used, or even that Mr. Robinson was alone in shooting at the targets. That all of the targets shot were fired by him. Without any evidence tying the targets to the seized weapon, the relevant time frame, and the conditions under which the targets were used, the targets are not a basis for any reasonable inference about the shooter's state of mind. That's a fair argument too. Just because I have targets that I have shot does not prove the moment that I shoot someone that I intended to shoot them just because I practice shooting. But what it does show is that I practice shooting. So if I'm practicing shooting and I only took one shot to kill someone, put two and two together, logic resounds. The state also asked this court to speculate that after scoping the rifle, it was taken apart and put back together prior to the shooting, and that therefore the shooter knew that a lack of accuracy created a high probability of risk of death to others. The state presented no evidence to support any inference that rifle was in pieces at any time. The video evidence shows Mr. Robinson walking up and downstairs at UVU with a gait impaired by something long in his pants leg. The reasonable inference from the evidence provided is that it was a fully assembled rifle. Okay, cool. I'm glad that they admit that. So now we have some type of inference that the rifle was not in pieces nor disassembled when he had the rifle on him. So the inference is that the rifle was a fully constructed and assembled rifle. Got it. The presence of a screwdriver on the roof does not establish that the rifle was taken apart and put back together any more than it established that the screwdriver was intended to take the rifle apart after the shooting. The state did not present any evidence as to how the screwdriver could have been used to disassemble and reassemble this weapon in the period of time at issue. Even if the court draws the inference that there is a connection between the rifle and the screwdriver, the court cannot then reasonably infer from that inference that a rifle deconstructed and then reconstructed would be less accurate, let alone that the shooter knew of that risk. Well, I would disagree with that argument. If I take apart my rifle right now, then I can trust that my rifle is going to be put back together. But that does not mean my rifle is going to be accurate. That would mean that I would have to put that rifle back. That's why I said earlier, even with me putting my scope back on my rifle, within 1 to 2 shots, I can still zero that thing in. But he put that thing on. He put that bullet where he intended to go in 1 shot. So I was never of the belief that he disassembled that rifle. That just sounds too far-fetched for me. Presence alone is insufficient as a matter of law to show KGRD. Even assuming arguendo that the shooter had knowledge that there were other individuals near Mr. Kirk, this fact alone does not satisfy that there was a great risk of death to another. The state relies on a case from Pennsylvania for the assertion that a zone of danger encompasses everyone near a shooting victim. I disagree with that. That everyone, this is why when you go to the gun range, this is why they say you cannot go past this line because you're in danger of getting shot. You don't know where bullets will go. When you pull that, hey Ada, what's going on? When you pull that trigger on that weapon, even if you may have that weapon downrange, there's no telling if that bullet can come back. You can hit something of a hard material and that bullet can bounce back, right? So yes, you have to tree calibrate it. That's right. You have to tree calibrate it. That's facts. As noted above, Utah has never adopted a formulation of the KGRD under which a single gunshot fired at a specifically identified target who was near others is sufficient to establish KGRD. Moreover, the cases cited by the state from Pennsylvania again do not support this position as explained below. I don't need to go through all of these cases. That's just re-explaining everything. These cases from a state with a moratorium on its own death penalty are not Utah law and do not support the state's call for this court to adopt out-of-state authority that vastly expands Utah's KGRD aggravator beyond its constitutionally narrow application. As explained in the Sosa, Guarato, Johnson, and Pierre, Utah law requires this court to look at more than mere presence and to determine there is a high probability, not a mere possibility, that another would be killed by the shooter's conduct and that the shooter knew of that high probability. Many other jurisdictions have interpreted KGRD as the Utah Supreme Court has, a multi-factor analysis that examines the course of conduct of the defendant in actions toward another and determining both the defendant's knowledge and the probability of risk. They're bringing up more cases, more cases. All right, cool. These examples are not exhaustive, but illustrate how other jurisdictions have interpreted KGRD consistently with the Utah Supreme Court. These jurisdictions all require a close examination of the defendant's course of conduct and the mental state of the defendant relative to other individuals. Count 6 must be stricken because the evidence does not establish that Mr. Robinson's statement to Mr. Twiggs to ask for a lawyer and stay silent was intended to obstruct an investigation. Shanny says, unless he's a sharpshooter or a sniper, that sentence is true, isn't it? In more ways than one it possibly could be. Count 6 charges Mr. Robinson with tampering with the witness in violation of Utah Code 768508. The information alleges that Mr. Robinson committed this offense by directing his roommate to stay silent if police questioned the roommate. Information at 3. The state alleges that by telling Mr. Twiggs to exercise his right under the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution to ask for counsel and to remain silent, Mr. Robinson attempted to induce or otherwise cause his roommate to withhold testimony or information with the intent to prevent an official proceeding or investigation. But again, it can be argued like that because he knew that they were going to come to his house and him telling him, hey, if anybody come asking you questions, I don't think that would be, it's all on how you argue, right? It could be argued that, yeah, that's tampering with a witness, but it also could be argued like, hey, just in case you're not aware of your rights, this is your rights. Ask for a lawyer and don't say nothing to nobody. So there's that. What else we got here? Yeah, Mr. Robinson's advice to Mr. Twiggs as follows. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. My lawyer should be Doug Terry. I'll see if he can reach out to you and make sure the police follow the right procedures, proper warrants and stuff, but be polite and respectful, of course. All right. Whether an individual who is under investigation obstructing that investigation or providing truly altruistic advice to another requires a context-specific analysis. Here are the conversations between Mr. Twiggs and Mr. Robinson demonstrates that Mr. Robinson's focus was on protecting Mr. Twiggs from any fallout from the events which had transpired and not on inducing him to obstruct an investigation. He says to Mr. Twiggs, I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. We hope to keep things sort of quiet here. I only hope they let you visit. I'm going to miss you too. Please be good for me. If you need anything at all, both my parents are willing to help you. Please go to them. Leave the room alone. The feds will search it top to bottom for certain, then work with my family to sort it out and what goes where and such. In response to Mr. Twiggs' question, is there any way you don't go to prison? Mr. Robinson responded, I highly doubt it. I will update you as much as I can. If you need a place to stay, I'm sure my family would have you in my old room. You are all I worry about, love. Don't talk to any media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. I will always love you too. I will write to you as often as possible. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. Make sure the police follow the right procedures, proper warrants and stuff. Be polite and respectful, of course. These statements by Mr. Robinson contextualize his altruistic advice to Mr. Twiggs to exercise his rights under the Fifth Amendment, to ask for a lawyer and stay silent. The facts do not support the state's allegation that the statement by Mr. Robinson was made with an intent to prevent an official proceeding or investigation. Count 6 must be stricken. Who's this? I don't know who this is. Anyway, count 7 must be stricken because the evidence does not establish that Mr. Robinson had knowledge that a child under the age of 14 was present and would see or hear the commission of the charged homicide. Well, that can be argued, but here's the other part, the other problem to that. Everywhere that Charlie went, his children went. Not everywhere, but to these events, to this specific event, his children was there. Did Mr. Robinson have knowledge that his children was there? No. Yes. Maybe. Probably. He went there to shoot and kill Charlie Kirk. So let's see what they say. The information charges Mr. Robinson in count 7 with the substantive offense of knowingly exposing a child under the age of 14 to charge homicide in violation of Utah Code 76.3.203.10. This section of the Utah law requires that the state prove that a violent offense occurred in the physical presence of a child younger than 14 years old, with the defendant having knowledge that the child is present and may see or hear the commission of a violent criminal offense. Well, it doesn't have to be Charlie Kirk's children. It could be other people's children that's there. It's a possibility. The state has failed to present sufficient evidence to establish probable cause that Mr. Robinson did, in fact, have the prerequisite knowledge. While the state presented a video which shows 2 children, in fact, present at the TPUSA rally at UVU on September 10th, the state presented no evidence that the shooter was aware of the child's presence. They messed up. Uh-oh. This is why reading is important. They fucked up. Did y'all catch it? I'm going to see if y'all catch it. They fucked up. Uh-oh. They fucked up in this one sentence. The state has failed to present sufficient evidence to establish probable cause that Mr. Robinson did, in fact, have requisite knowledge. While the state presented a video which shows 2 children, in fact, present at the TPUSA rally at UVU on September 10th, the state presented no evidence that the shooter, y'all put the shooter and Mr. Robinson in the same breath. Uh-oh. To all you conspiracy theorists out there, other than admitting that it was their client who did the shooting, facts. They fucked up. They fucked up. This is why reading is important. Without any evidentiary, no evidence that the shooter was aware of the child's presence, nor that he was aware of the presence of any other child under the age of 14. Without any evidentiary support, the state invites this court to speculate that Mr. Robinson, from approximately 400 feet away and during a 35 to 44-second period, came to be aware of the presence of children under the age of 14. Relying upon Mr. Robinson's alleged walking tour of the campus several hours before the TPUSA rally began. There was no evidence that Mr. Robinson was anywhere near the crowd that formed prior to the rally, or that he observed children or families with children making their way to the space where the rally occurred. Indeed, the path Mr. Robinson traveled, as visible in State's Exhibits 12.1 and 12.4, suggests Mr. Robinson did not even pass anyone that could be identified as under 14 years old. The reasonable inferences might differ if the location of the incident were not a college campus. If the defendant were to engage in crimes of violence at an obviously occupied elementary school or a daycare facility, it might be reasonable to infer the knowledge required under count 7. With the evidence as it is, this is not a reasonable inference. The violent offense committed in the presence of a child aggravating factor must be stricken for the same reason. There is no evidence that Mr. Robinson had the requisite knowledge. Separate and apart from count 7, the state has alleged the identical aggravating factor in connection with counts 1 and 2, pursuant to Code Section 76.3.2039. The analysis is no different. There is no evidence that Mr. Robinson had the requisite knowledge and state improperly invites the court to speculate. An inference is an conclusion reached by considering other facts and deducing a logical consequence from them, and speculation entails the act or practice of theorizing about matters over which there is no certain knowledge at hand. The state's backup position that sentencing enhancements are not subject to proof at a preliminary hearing is inconsistent with the well-established constitutional law. Got it. How much are they just going through a whole bunch of examples here? Right. So, this is why reading is important, right? The state has failed to produce reliable evidence that the victim targeting enhancement applies here. The victim targeting enhancement set forth in Utah Code 763203 is focused on the defendant's perception concerning a personal attribute of the victim. The single personal attribute alleged in the information is Mr. Kirk's political expression. Without any further specificity in the charging document in support of this enhancement, the state prefers two disconnected sets of facts which fail to establish probable cause. One set is Exhibit 5-1, a Rule 1102 witness statement of David Englehart, a pastor. Pastor Englehart's statement contains no information concerning Mr. Robinson's state of mind as to Mr. Kirk's political expressions. While it purports to present this court with information as to what Charlie Kirk believed, as all theologically orthodox Christians believe about gender, identity, and sexuality, it does not identify any specific statements made by Mr. Kirk on these topics prior to September 10th, 2025. It also identifies subject matters that Mr. Kirk would debate and discuss at various events, but it does not identify a specific political expression of Mr. Kirk on such topics, let alone statements of Mr. Kirk that were both known to and motivated Mr. Robinson. Therefore, Mr. Englehart's written sermon as to what all theologically orthodox Christians, including Mr. Kirk, believe does not establish that Mr. Robinson intentionally selected the victim of the criminal offense because of the defendant's belief or perception regarding the victim's personal attribute or a personal attribute of another individual or group of individuals with whom the victim has a relationship. The only fact is Mr. Robinson's statement to Mr. Twiggs, "I had enough of his hatred." Mr. Robinson does not tell Mr. Twiggs in this text exchange, nor was there, according to Mr. Twiggs, any prior communication between them concerning Mr. Kirk, nor that Mr. Robinson targeted Mr. Kirk because of his religious beliefs or his political beliefs or any other category of beliefs. He refers to hatred and nothing more. Ironically, it is the state that argues that because Mr. Robinson and Mr. Twiggs are two men who love each other, and or it speculates because Mr. Twiggs and not Mr. Robinson was at least intermittently identifying as a female to his close friends, it is Mr. Kirk's views on these topics which are the hatred Mr. Robinson referring to. Okay, so they backpedal their own argument. Because Lance Twiggs identifies as a woman, and because of Charlie Kirk's statements on transgenderism, Tyler Robinson was pissed off because his boyfriend, whom he was railroading anally every night, he took offense to what Charlie Kirk was saying. Got it. Okay. These circumstances are not sufficient to establish, even by probable cause, which, if any political expression of Mr. Kirk's motivated Mr. Robinson to select Mr. Kirk for an in fact violence. There is no evidence of specific political expressions of Mr. Kirk, which, if any, Mr. Robinson may have been aware of or focused on. There are no writings attributed to Mr. Robinson on this topic. There are no other statements by Mr. Robinson to third parties which address Mr. Kirk on his political viewpoints and Mr. Robinson's perception of them. After searching his residence, his parents' residence, and his computers, his telephone, Mr. Twiggs' telephone, and hundreds of law enforcement interviews, there is nothing to base this sentence enhancement upon other than that single criticism of Mr. Kirk's is hatred. In the fact of absence of evidence, the state focuses on Mr. Robinson's sexuality and Mr. Twiggs' gender identity, if only because those are two topics on which Mr. Kirk was, in fact, widely viewed as expressing hatred and intolerance. What? However, that is not an evidentiary substitute for proof that Mr. Robinson targeted Mr. Kirk because of those expressions. It is the state's speculation that he did so. The victim targeting and harassment must be stricken. In conclusion, in relying largely on hearsay deemed reliable by rule, the state has failed to prove probable cause by reliable evidence that satisfies each element of each of the charged evidence. For this reason alone, this court must decline bend over, bind over. I said bend over. In addition, the state has not provided this court with sufficient evidence as a matter of law to satisfy the sole alleged aggravator in the information. Under controlling constitutional law and Utah Supreme Court interpretation, the court cannot find, based on the state's evidence, that the circumstances presented a great risk of death to another other than Charlie Kirk and himself, and that the shooter knew of this high probability of death in another. Finally, the court should decline to bind over on the state's alleged aggravators in counts 6 and 7, where the state requires this court to speculate in the absence of evidence to establish essential elements. So I hope by reading through that, Candace Owens, you got some explaining to do, right? You definitely got some explaining to do. This theory that you and your listeners, your followers, and others like you have been crafting really needs to be put to bed. And in lieu of what happened with Carmelo Anthony and what's going on right now with Nolan Wells, you would hope that people would be more responsible. Sorry, 1 second. That people would be more responsible in how it is that they handle these type of things. Because when it comes down to it, and yes, we're about to get into our next topic when we're discussing Nolan Wells, because that is a doozy. And just in case y'all didn't see it, it's a hell of a doozy, because now we must talk about how it is that they are trying to use Nolan Wells' death as power over the people, and how it is that the Nolan Wells grift needs to have some truth spread all upon it, right? We really need to talk about this whole entire ideal about this whole thing, right? So first, I want to get to showing y'all this video right here. This video pissed me off this morning. And why this video pissed me off this morning is a simple fact of because of this. And y'all going to catch it as we listen to it and as we hear through it. Let's watch.
Hey, Boo Bears. Let me say this. My husband and I are going to continue to advocate. I know so many people are like, oh my God, you need to stay on social media. You need to give it a break. Well, just know I'm not on social media all day. I'm not. I've been heavy in my Kindle. And then, of course, too, I have other children that I take care of. But occasionally I do pop on. Most of the time I just post, come off. But trust and believe that I'm doing the things I need to do to take care of my mental. And sometimes posting does feel nice because I get to check in with my different Boo Bears and see how everyone is doing. But if you have an issue with me advocating and asking questions, I don't think I'm the problem, babe. I think you're the problem. I think you.
Yeah, see, the problem that I have with Christine is that no one has a problem with you asking questions about your son's death. You should be asking questions. But also, all of the inferences that you're putting out about your son's death is based on race, right? You were a good mama invisible, but you are screwing up as an honest citizen, demanding attention. That's a fact. And not only that, but I don't know if y'all caught this little piece of evidence that came out recently. Y'all do understand that what was reported was that the friends of Nolan Wells turned in his cell phone to his mother. How come that cell phone has not been turned over to the police department yet? I'm just wondering, and I really would like to know the answer to that question. Everyone's depending on and waiting for this so-called, well, not so-called, but they're waiting for the official autopsy to come out. They're running off the narrative that facts. They're running off the narrative that Ben Crump's independent autopsy is the end all to be all, and they come up with all these different narratives about why it is that these boys or this girl or these people is responsible for taking Nolan Wells' life. But his mother, in turn, even at her own son's funeral, was inferring that race was the sole factor that contributed to all of this. Now, I appreciate the fact that she's coming on social media and saying, well, all of these, that, and the other things. Or what is this? Shit now. So, and everything that she's doing and saying, I appreciate the fact that she's, keeping people up to date. But, ma'am, stop making it about race. It would be greatly appreciated if you stop making it about race, right? Let's continue.
You need to take a step back and ask yourself, why are you so triggered? Or what is causing you to be so upset that I am asking for answers? That is,
well, you're asking for answers, but you're saying that people are racist. The problem is, if people are racist, why did you move there? Right? That's the crazy part that's really tripping me out, because, and shout out to my man's JT the Realist, right? JT the Realist had put out a video earlier. Let me go to his video right quick, because he asked a very prominent question. Oh, come on. JT the Realist. There it is. In this video right here.
Like that. They fucking hate. Why are they like this? Why are they like this? I'm telling y'all why they're like that. They fucking hate you. They've been taught to hate you. And the majority of them are too stupid to realize that they've been lied to. White people are the enemy to them, yet the most dangerous thing to a black person is another black person. That is proven by reality. That is why a bunch of niggas move out the hood. Soon as a nigga gets some money, they move with the white folks. You want to know why? For fucking safety reasons. That's why. But these same people would tell you that it's the white people we looking out for. Okay, if that's the case, why the fuck do you rich niggas always move next to them? Why?
It's a solid question. Why is it that when black people, when the first thing they do is get a little bit of money, the first thing they do is move out to the suburbs, they move out where white people is? I'll tell you why. They feel closer, they feel safer around white people than they do around niggas. It's just that simple. So for his mother, this is the same thing that happened with the Carmelo Anthony case, and why people was giving me flack about it. Don't get mad at me. I'm just calling out the fact that y'all say that y'all don't trust black conservatives because we side with the white narrative and we defend white people. Yet when y'all get some money, the first thing y'all do is go out to the white neighborhoods. Let's continue.
How y'all make just enough money to move out of certain neighborhoods? Y'all do that, and y'all go straight to where them white folks live. Why? Explain that. Explain that.
They can't, bro. They really can't. But anyway, going back to it.
That is all. Never ask for special treatment, none of that. But there are just a lot of people who's bothered. But what I will tell you is that there are a lot more people who, despite the nasty negative narratives that are trying to be thrown out there, there's a lot of other people supporting me and my husband Elmore. And we just appreciate that, just as parents losing a child. I'm telling you, y'all, it hits different. My mom passed away. It's going to be 8 years. And this hurt, I've said this in another video, this hurt is different. This is like a soul wrenching hurt. Like you feel like your heart is just being ripped out. I don't even know if that's even a good way to describe this hurt, but yeah. But I just want to say thank you guys. I'm telling y'all, thank you so much. Thank you to all the content creators who are using their podcasts, their platforms, all those things to make sure that Nolan's story is going. I appreciate y'all. And I know I say thank you all the time, but even when I'm broken, like I still need to give thanks, whether it's thanking the Lord for another day, thanking him for the time we had with Nolan, or just simply saying thank you to you guys for just loving on me and my family and your prayers. And I appreciate it. I'm sorry I can't get back to everybody because it is overwhelming, but just know I appreciate you and I love you. And I'm going to go clean up and get my life together. Have a great Sunday.
Now, as great of a message that it is, right? And what's amazing is, right, we understand that Nolan Wells was 18 years old. We understand that you said she is Ashley Curry. I'm me. For all of the sympathy and the embrace and empathy that is being poured out for Nolan Wells' mother, where was this sympathy for Austin Metcalf's mother? Where was this sympathy for Austin Metcalf's brother? Where was this sympathy for Austin Metcalf's father? If I'm not mistaken, people were saying that it was disrespectful for Austin Metcalf's father, Jeff Metcalf, to be in front of a news camera. They were saying that it was disrespectful for him to be in public. They were saying that it was disrespectful for him to be speaking about his son's murder. Yet they are praising Christine, a woman who has given up custody of her children. A bad representation of what a mother is supposed to be. This is what y'all say on y'all podcast. This is what y'all say on your live stream panels. These are the discussions that y'all are having on a daily basis. That when a parent gives up their child, when they give up custody of their child, they're a bad parent. But when it's a woman, oh, well, she's going through something. Well, Jeff Metcalf was going through something. A lot of people's parents was going through something. I'm just using that as an example. And then not to include, yes, we are going to watch that interview from Officer Tatum with the boys and what it is that they had to say about this whole entire thing. Now, we've already covered part one, but let's get to part two.
We have a dead body on the boat. I mean, why would we call the Coast Guard? You know, why would we do the things we did if we know we killed somebody?
You don't hear about the pool party because it was on June 27th. You don't hear about anything else that was mentioned. Thousands of lies. And now, the audio comes back, and all of a sudden we could hear Nolan yelling in the background, screaming. You know, we're screaming.
Deborah says they raised the GoFundMe to $950,000 last week, and they already up to $150,000. I thought, wait, time out. I thought raising money for a cause based on race was racist. I could be wrong, but all right, let's continue.
About how he's dead. That's just a complete lie.
If you just murdered your best friend on an island, the dumbest thing you could do would be to call the Coast Guard.
What is your thoughts on that phone call to Cito? Some people have gone out and done enhancements to the audio, and in doing that, created a transcript manually. It doesn't appear that the transcript was derived from an automated system or have any, in my opinion, real integrity with it. What are your thoughts, first, you guys, on the audio, and then I'll get to you, Ed, on could that be a defamatory area the way it was produced? So what do you guys think about that audio?
Well, I can go ahead and say that as you posted that clip of all of us on the boat, you know, as it's rolling, not rolling, but right there sitting in the water, Wyatt's on the phone with Cito in that clip. I mean, he's on the phone. Wouldn't you think that you would have seen Nolan on the bottom of on the floor or something, or scrambling around, or everybody in a pot, like in a small space on the boat looking at him or something? I mean, it's just so crazy to think that. Why would we call Cito if we have a dead body on the boat? I mean, why would we call the Coast Guard? You know, why would we do the things we did if we know we killed somebody? And then another following up on that is, why aren't we in jail yet? I mean, we're not geniuses. We can't. There's no way we could have done it.
Omni says, had Nolan Wells lived, would the community come together to raise nearly $1 million for his tuition and success? Or are black boys only valuable when they're dead? That's a very good question. Now, that question stems from a very hot topic, Omni, and you know what that topic is. And that topic is something that we always talk about. Are black boys only valued in death? As a matter of fact, that's probably going to be our next topic, right? It's probably going to be our next open panel topic. Because if they're not valued in life, they only valued in death, then what is all of this really for?
A murder. I mean, there's no way we could have covered it up, especially out there with that many people. Go ahead. I think, especially about the Cito call, I think people, regardless of who it is going to believe what they want to hear. I think half these people, or not half these people, but some of these people you can't convince, regardless. They're going to believe what they want to believe. If they want to believe that my friends and I had something to do with Nolan dying, then they're going to believe that regardless of what you put out. But you put out, Brandon, that a clip of the boat when Wyatt was on the phone with Cito, and it is boldly clear that Nolan was not on the boat with us. You can literally almost see down to the deck. And as you can see in that picture, everybody is completely casual while Wyatt's on the phone with Cito. Yeah, we were scrambling around trying to get the boat fixed, but the guys were, in the video, you can see me, I'm sitting on the bow. If there was someone dying on the boat, why would everybody just be sitting there waiting to either get towed in or in the first place, like Jack said, why would Wyatt call Cito? It's crazy. The reason we turned down Coast Guard is, why would we call Coast Guard if Cito could pull us in? But we fixed the boat and we ran into Fort Bayou, and that's it. The Cito call was completely enhanced, and these people just want to believe what they want to hear. And that's exactly what they're doing. So it's just crazy to me that people have tried to twist this and twist the audio. When we came out with the first interview, it debunked half these lies, and now you don't hear about any of it. You don't hear about the pool party because it was on June 27th. You don't hear about anything else that was mentioned. Thousands of lies. And now, the audio comes back, and all of a sudden we can hear Nolan yelling in the background, screaming, we're screaming about how he's dead. That's just a complete lie. And it's another lie to push this narrative that people don't want to turn down. It's insane to me.
Sorry to interrupt. I know you're enjoying this incredible interview. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, and also join our membership program. Let's get back to the interview. And if you guys could say one thing to naysayers out there, in your opinion, that are naysayers, I want to give you, a 30-second opportunity to say what you would want to say to people regarding what you're saying are lies that have been told about you. And I could start here and we'll go all the way down to, and we'll end with you, Ed. But Morgan, if you had an opportunity to have this projected to everybody in the United States of America, many people who have made statements about you and about what occurred that day, what would you say to them? Like just a 30-second, this is what you would want to convey.
First I would say that, it's proven in evidence that they're all lies. I think that most of these people are just going to, I say most of these people, a lot of these people that have posted stuff out there, they've just been lies backed by no evidence. And if I had one thing to say to them, I'd say, do your research before you go out saying something that's not true, that could hurt someone. Just do your research. It's easy. All you have to do is just scroll like they do all day long and find the evidence that's right in front of their face. And it'll prove its own facts.
I could say I would want to add on to that, do the proper research. Sort through all the lies. And a lot of these stuff, you can just tell straight off the bat it's lies. And for one, it's defaming us. And for two, it makes you look like a dummy. You're just saying stuff, just pulling it out of who knows where. And you just look like an idiot on your phone, making this TikTok or whatever. Do your research, man. If you can't simply do that, don't get on your phone and start making a video.
It's just kind of concerned me with like how people have the time of day to just make up complete lies out of something that they have no evidence of and to post on social media to put other people down. It's insane to me, like how like just people push this and, you know, want to make this a story that it's absolutely not. I don't know what happened to Nolan. My friends don't know what happened to Nolan. But for people to come around and say, oh, this happened for a fact, and I know this, and there's no telling me otherwise, then that's just stupid. You have no, like, half these people that are saying all these crazy things on the internet, those lies have already been debunked. There's evidence supporting this is a lie. Like, why are you still saying this? These people just have no idea what they're talking about. And it's very clear because a lot of these people just speak without thinking and post stuff without thinking. But at the end of the day, it just looks really stupid on their page and whatever they're posting on. But it's just sad. Like, people really take the time out of their day to post a bunch of BS lies on a bunch of 19 and 20-year-olds who have never done anything to hurt anyone and, loved their friend. Like, I loved that man more than anybody. And like, so did all of my friends. And it's absolutely horrible that these people want to come on and push this narrative that we had something to do with this or we killed our best friend. It's just sick to me, Brandon. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, this might be too long, but I have a few things I need to add. First of all, with respect to Warren, if you just murdered your best friend on an island, the dumbest thing you could do would be to call the Coast Guard, to call a federal law enforcement agency and tell them, hey, can you guys go out and check out this island and look for Nolan Wells? Well, that's exactly what Warren did. Warren called the Coast Guard. And that is one of many very compelling facts. He got back and he called the Coast Guard. Does that sound like a guilty man to you? Right? Now, these are all American young men, incredible young men. And they did a lot more than just that. I won't go through all of it now, but they did a lot of heroic things after the fact. And they did the best they could. And they tried for their dear friend. All of their actions are the actions of innocent men, not guilty men. And again, they are categorically, completely, and totally innocent. All right? But that's not the end of it. I'll say this again. If you lied, you won't be able to hide. If you lied, you won't be able to hide. And you're going to be held accountable. And if you lied about these fine young men, these good Ocean Springs people, you're going to be held accountable. You're going to be sued. I tell you, there are going to be lawsuits because we have already identified some of the worst offenders. And it may have felt good for them in the moment, instant gratification, sugar high. Mm-hmm. They got their sugar high. But long after that sugar high wears off, they're going to find themselves in court, and it's going to be excruciatingly painful. The only thing I can say about that is it won't be quite as painful as what they did to Morgan, Jax, and Warren.
So Ed, I got one question for you because the way you guys articulate the defamation, obviously, if someone puts out online lies, knowingly and intentionally do them, knowing that they're lies, in part, that's a part of the defamation. But is the racial component, because when someone goes out and says things without evidence, projecting that this was a racial encounter, is that a part of this defamation, or does that not count as far as your tactics on defending them or defending their honor, I guess?
Really quick, Deborah says, I have a feeling that the grand jury is going to decide to indict the boys on criminal charges, even if there is no sufficient evidence presented. Well, I hope not. Right. And because the only reason I would see that, one, you would have to have substantial, and I agree with you, right? But there has to be substantial evidence that if you're going to indict them, and you have to show cause to indict them. And then two, if you're just indicting them to lower the temperature of the populace, then you would be doing a disservice. Right. A lot of people are saying that the only reason that they charged Carmelo Anthony as fast as they did, and why they arrested him as fast as they did, is because they wanted to lower the temperature of what was going on down there in Texas. Well, the problem is it didn't lower the temperature. It just made it hotter because people across social media decided to be stupid and participate in making this about race. The thing is, if there is substantial, right? Yeah, listen, Deborah, I'm right there with you, right? It's a high possibility that they might be indicted. But I wish it was on substantiated grounds. If there's absolute evidence that these boys had something to do with Nolan Wells' death, charge them, put them in jail, lock them up, throw them away the key bucket. It is what it is. But if there's nothing to put on top of that, don't charge these boys. You're only going to do more harm than anything else. Says they got Carmelo because it was obvious it was him that broke the law. Facts.
In this situation.
Well, one thing that we're never going to do is we're never going to speculate and we're never going to guess like some other folks who got their sugar highs and are sucking up all the oxygen in the room for now, and they'll have their day in court. But we can talk about what might motivate people. And I won't talk about any particular people because I am not inside their head right now. But I can tell you that racism for profit is a major factor here.
Hold on. I like that.
Head right now. But I can tell you that racism for profit is a major factor here. And we don't have to name names. But racism for profit, generating outrage for profit, in the end, it's all about money. And we don't even have to think about whether the racism that these people are talking about is real or fake or anything like that. It's racism for profit. And it's part of the motive. But when you have offenders who defame innocent young men, fine innocent young men, upstanding young men, it might be a constellation of motives. Profit, animus, stupidity, ignorance. Maybe they just don't like evidence. See, we really like evidence here. Tyler Cox really likes evidence. I really like evidence. Morgan, Jax, Warren, we really like evidence. And that's the difference between the other guys and us. And we have evidence. We have the receipts. We have the goods. And we're going to be presenting it in court. And I will say, once we present it in court, we're going to say, now you can't leave.
Do you think that the other side...
Really quick, Nita says, well, I had people at my job last night saying they saw a video of the friends harming or unaliving Nolan Wells on TikTok and Facebook. Is that true? Well, if that's what they say they saw, then it can be true that they saw it. But what they saw is not true because I've seen that same video. As a matter of fact, I think I got that video saved. Hold on. Let me go to my page because I seen the... Hold on. I think I got that video saved. Hold on. How do you go to your bookmarks on Facebook? Somebody help me out. How do you go to your bookmarks? Saved. Is this it? Yeah, this is it. Hold on. All right, so this is the video. Hold on. This is the video right here.
At it again. Hey man, y'all check this out, man. Y'all hit the like, subscribe button for me. This video I'm finna show y'all. Tell me if this Nolan. Tell me if y'all think this Nolan, because I believe it's Nolan, man. Y'all hit the like and subscribe button, man. Share the video. Let's go. Y'all look at this, y'all. Y'all look at this. I believe that's Nolan. I believe that's Nolan. I believe Javon is right there. I believe it's Nolan Wells and Javon is also there. Javon is also there, y'all. Right there, y'all see his forehead? Javon forehead keep peeping in, keep coming in the screen, y'all. He was there. I ain't never trusted Javon or his mama. Now y'all starting to make me think Javon and his mama deleted them text messages out of that phone calls. I'm pretty sure Javon knew Nolan code if he had a digital code. Y'all get what I'm saying? Boy, this just got dirty. Javon was there. Javon was there when Nolan lost his life. Look at him right there. That's him right there, y'all. That's his hair. That's his hair, y'all. That's him right there. Oh my God. Lock everybody up. Lock them goddamn devils up. Lock Javon up. I knew him and his mama knew something. Man, y'all look at Nolan, man. I believe this video is real. I don't think it's no AI. They playing right in our goddamn face. That's what they doing, y'all. They playing in our face, y'all. Oh man, this how the devil like to play. They like to sit, they like to send signs out there and little clues out there and play in our face because they can't help it. They can't help it. They feel like they in control when they doing this here. They feel like they in control, but they fucking up. Cause we gonna get it out there. Oh,
1 second, y'all. My dog is losing his mind.
Because I've seen through social media that there's a preparation of lawsuits against the boys. Is there merit, according to your knowledge in this space, is there merit to pursuing lawsuits against them?
I am so glad you asked that question because I can answer that question definitively and unequivocally. Anybody who sues Jax, Warren, or Morgan, they're going to end up paying our attorney's fees. Guaranteed. Any lawsuit, and I'm going to warn anyone right now, anybody who is thinking for 1 second about suing these fine young men, these good Ocean Springs people, you're going to pay their attorney's fees. You're going to lose. You're going to get annihilated. You're going to get crushed. You have nothing. And here's the beauty of it. We know you have nothing because we actually have the evidence. We know what happened. And I'll just say it like this. We have a pair of aces and you have 2-7 offsuit.
So with all the negative that's going on, obviously there's been positive that I've seen that have come y'all's direction. I felt like when Warren came out and did the interview the first time, of course, a lot of people decided to say a lot of negative things, but then there's a tremendous amount of people that were very supportive and thankful that they had a chance to hear the other side. So what are y'all's thoughts and feelings on the other side of this, where people have been supportive? Kind of what are your thoughts on that? What have you experienced in that area?
I want to start off and just say that has helped us tremendously through this. One, mentally knowing that there are people on our side that are here to help and want to help and are actually helping with the online stuff. And I want to say thank you to everybody who has made a video on the positive side of things and showing the actual facts and debunking a lot of false information and giving to the Gifts and Go. Yeah, that's another really big one. Thank you so much for that. Giving to the Gifts and Go. That means a lot more than you could ever imagine.
Yeah, Morgan.
I just want to say thank you to all the people out there. I personally went through and looked at all the there's a prayer thing you can say a prayer on there, and I personally went through and looked at all the prayers, and I'm just really appreciative of all the people that I know that have our backs and have supported us through all of this. It's really helped us out.
That's great.
Obviously I want to give thanks to my friends and my family. Really appreciate it. I mean, it's hard to get by every day without having a group of people behind you. And it really helps my friend and I's, especially like mental state. All
right, y'all, I'm back. My bad. I had to get a damn Amazon order from the thingamajig. All right, so really quick, I wanted to address that video really quick because that video is not real. That is a old video that the person who had made that video, they took that video of Nolan on island. They took that video and said it was Nolan Wells, and that video is not true. All right. Let me find video of Nolan on the beach. Hold on. Nolan, oops. Wells on beach. Do. Where's that video at? I gotta find that video. Yeah, this is it. This is the video right here.
Apparently, there's a video of Nolan Wells getting jumped on the beach at night by a bunch of angry white kids. Now, I know you guys are stupid and slow, okay? Black Tucker Carlson and pretty much anyone who actually looks up to Ben Crump. Let me tell you something. These guys all together, they have the combined IQ of a fucking rock, an acorn. They're so stupid, okay? Let me tell you something. Ben Crump isn't stupid, okay? He's the head house nigga. He's Stephen from Django, and the rest of y'all are on the plantation. Free yourselves. Get off like me, okay? Just get off. Get out of there, all right? Think for yourself, and let's use our critical thinking skills here, right? Okay, Nolan Wells, right? Okay, first of all, when they did the autopsy, right, your boy Ben Crump just had a hard time reading through the autopsy, just revealed that he had no lacerations, no fractures, all right, and a little bit of redness on the back of his head. That could be from anything. Do you think that's how an autopsy would look if he was getting beat up by a bunch of white kids, okay? Remember, he was wearing blue trunks when all this happened, okay? Use our critical thinking skills, all right? The boys were tracked by the GPS on the boat, leaving to their homes, okay? They weren't at the island. They weren't on the island at night. There's park rangers that go around and look on the island to make sure there's nobody left still hanging around, or in this case, jumping somebody. Let's use our critical thinking skills because none of you guys like to actually do that. All you do is care about clicks and views, just like Ben Crump, right? You'll say breaking video is going around allegedly showing Nolan Wells being attacked at on the beach. Come on. You know that your followers are just going to automatically believe something like this because, again, they're not interested in the truth. They just want to make this some sort of narrative and act like that Mississippi is still racist like it was when Emmett Till got lynched. Guys, Mississippi has the lowest rate of like hate crimes since the FBI started tracking this in the 90s. Yes, back in the day, lynchings were super common, okay? But that's not the way the world is anymore. We cannot get past that if we keep living in the past, okay? But none of y'all want to think about the situation here. No lacerations or fractures, okay? Blue trunks. This is at nighttime. Let's use our fucking brains here. And look at, who's this raging white guy? Absolutely insane. Does this look like any of Nolan's friends? Okay. This is what AI does when you pause a video and you say enhance it, like Jarvis enhance, like Iron Man, right? And to top it off, there's a black guy recording the whole thing go down. Absolutely retarded. So, you know, I'm not surprised that they're spreading this stuff. This is going popular on TikTok and Instagram. You know, just stop falling for the propaganda. Hey, free yourselves. Get off the plantation, okay? Hey, get off. Get out of there. You're allowed to have your own opinion. Okay, it's beautiful when you have your own opinion and you don't have to assume everything is about race all the time. Okay, and I just want to get to the part where it shows the black guy recording because that's wild. Who's that black guy, right? Fucking retarded people. Like, there he is right there. There he is back there. Who's that black guy? I mean, I'm not going to show it again. You can watch it for yourself, but actually retarded people on this platform.
So I hope that clears up. I hope that clears up the claim that there's a video of Nolan Wells getting attacked because it's not true. And whoever says that they saw that video of Nolan Wells getting attacked, it's not true at all whatsoever.
Believe that half the people covering this case don't really care about the outcome or even getting to the truth. What they care about is that sweet, sweet engagement. And let me tell you something. I get it. As a content creator, it's tough out here, but you cannot just you can, but come on. Now, this video started circulating around over on, I think, TikTok first, then Instagram, and now it's made its way to X. And the caption reads, right? Video shows what appears to be Nolan Wells being slammed on his head before being killed, allegedly. allegedly. People add allegedly at the end of everything, and it makes it seem like it's okay. The unfortunate part is that even though you say allegedly, there's a lot of people that are misinformed or just don't know enough about the case in general to just look at the other things that went on with the case and understand that it's obviously a bunch of bullshit. But if you see right down here, obviously has 1.9 million views. And let me tell you something, when it comes to that sweet, sweet engagement, I get it as a content creator. You want to, maximize those views, but come on, can we have a little dignity? Anyways, let's look at the video, break it down, and we'll discuss a little more about it at the end of the video. All right, let's watch it first, then we'll, dissect it. I'm sorry, but the way he got yeeted through the air and the soundtrack is so cringe and corny, and obviously it looks AI. It's hard to tell these days because AI is so good, but let's rewind it and break it down a little bit. Now remember, let's keep some different facts in mind. Yes, we didn't get a full autopsy, but one of the autopsies told us that Nolan Wells had no lacerations, right? No major deep tissue bruising and no fractures. Do you think that if he was killed in this way, there would be no evidence of obviously him getting slammed on the ground like that? Obviously, there would be some evidence. The second thing is, remember, this is happening with allegedly, right, with the group of friends he went to the island with. Remember, they tracked the GPS on the boat. Did they take multiple other boats out there? Because remember, only about 4 people can actually fit on one of those boats. And as you can see in this video, there's plenty of other people, right? So that doesn't make sense. Also, wasn't Nolan Wells wearing blue trunks? Now, if we look at this video, right, I'm going to play it here and we're going to skip through it here. You can see that there's some kind of fight going on, right? I'm going to turn the sound down because I don't want to get DMCA'd, right? But watch, he's wearing like tan shorts or something like that. There's a girl there. There's one girl. We'll see the girl here in a second. But watch how he flies through. You see that? Like he flies through the air, right? And he hits a force field, right? Like right here, and whoop, and kind of gets sucked back in there. His arm kind of flail out kind of crazily. And it doesn't seem like a real video to me, right? And then remember, the only girl I can remember that was with them, right, was that one that he was seen with. And that's definitely not her, right? She had like dirty blonde hair, a little thicker than that, you know what I'm saying? So to me, this doesn't make sense. Now, the interesting part is that this person actually has an ad for their Snapchat, I guess Rosemary Beach, and they actually posted this. This is from their Snapchat, right? There have been a lot of videos circulating and speculating surrounding a TikTok video I posted about a month ago. Now, obviously it's about a month ago, so it could be around July 4th, right? But it's already kind of dated itself. With many people claiming it shows Nolan Wells. I want to clarify that I was not present at the time the video was taken, and I do not know the identity of the individual shown. Because of that, I cannot confirm or deny any claims about who is in the video. And I don't want to contribute to speculation or misinformation. Excuse me. My thoughts and prayers are with Nolan Wells and his family in those situations, but at the same time, he's also advertising his Snapchat. So it's like one of those things where it's like he's giving you bullshit, but he adds a little nice things at the end. Like, oh, I don't know, it could be Nolan Wells, speculation. I don't know, hey, but add me on Snapchat. Now, obviously, I think it's BS, right? And if you look at some of the other pictures, first of all, the GPS data tracked the boat getting docked around 7 p.m. and never going back out to water. Let's clear that out of the way right there, right? And then remember, the park rangers come and sweep up the island after that. So don't you think they would see a bunch of kids huddled around beating up some kid? Don't you think they would see that? Also, there's a brother in this video, right? What is he doing? Is he just watching? Watch, you'll see a black guy here right there. That's a brother right there. What is he doing? Right? You see him back there with the white shirt on and the phone, right? What is he doing? And who are these guys? Did Nolan Wells have a friend like that? Watch his belly. Like he's kind of a bigger guy, right? He's not like a skinny guy, right? Right around, it was right here.
So with that, to Sister Nita in the chat that says that there was some people at her job last night that said that there was a video of Nolan Wells getting on live. Make sure you refer them to this live stream and you let them know that that is a complete lie and they need to wait until the full investigation comes out rather than the narrative that's being pushed. Shout out to KC2453 with 200 Jews. Greatly appreciate you, big homie. Let us continue back with our Brandon Tatum reaction right quick.
side of things, knowing that we have a community behind us that is willing to stand for us and stand for the truth. And, we can't thank them enough. Like, seriously, with, like Morgan said, the prayers and just even the money and the gifts and go. It's a blessing from the Lord. And, we can't thank everybody enough. Seriously, it's been more than enough. So
Ed, what are your thoughts on this? I know you see the outpouring of support for the boys. I know that obviously with your credentials, you're taking on this case, which is a huge undertaking, representing multiple young people in this, with so many people that you have mentioned that could be possibly going to get sued in this. So what would you like to say to the people about this?
Well, the most important thing is that these three outstanding young men who are completely innocent are worth standing behind. It's worth standing behind them. It's worth supporting them, because these three gentlemen here, they're going to go out into the world and they're going to do incredible things for society. Right? These are three young men who want to help people and who are going to help people. They're just wonderful souls, wonderful human beings. So if you want someone to support, if you're looking for someone to support, and if you're looking for people who tell the truth and like evidence and common sense, you should support these guys, not the other guys who traffic in lies. All right? Now there's a Give, Send, Go page. Right? Those donations are very important. We have an incredible legal team. I'm very, very privileged to be working with Tyler Cox, called Cox. Right? Is that right? So, but we're going to be bringing powerhouse lawsuits, absolutely powerhouse. But, right, it does require support. It requires support, and any support is greatly appreciated. But there are also things that people can do that have nothing to do with money. All we're asking people to do is embrace reality, embrace common sense, and don't give in to your worst impulses. Do the research, read, look at the evidence, right? Start judging credibility, and look at the respective motivations, the motives on both sides, right? On one side, you have some folks who maybe are not motivated by such great things. But what we have on our side and why you should support us, one word for you. My favorite word, which is virtue. We've got virtue, all right? We've got the honesty. We've got the integrity, right? We're doing the right thing here. Honesty, integrity, that's us. Honesty, integrity, and the truth. And those are very high virtues. And that's why you should support these incredible young men.
Well, thank you guys for agreeing to do an interview.
Let me just say this, right? Because we about to get up out of here in a little bit. But let me just say this. It is a clear contrast to when people are painting themselves as a victim and when people are defending themselves. And I hope that people catch that, right? User says, while I was watching this, there were people commenting they talking too much that screams guilty. When I looked at their past comments, it was all about why aren't they saying anything? Guilty. Facts. And that's what I want to go on. The same people who are saying that they're guilty because they're talking is the same people that were saying they're guilty because they're quiet. Oh, well, they're not saying anything because they're guilty. They're not doing this because they're guilty. They're not doing that because okay, cool. So if guilty, if silence means I'm guilty and talking means I'm guilty, how can I be presumed to be innocent? Evidence won't make me innocent. Video won't make me innocent. Text message won't make me innocent. The only thing that will make these boys innocent right now is if Nolan Wells came back to life, like Jesus. And since they couldn't get a win with Carmelo Anthony, a lot of people are saying like, oh, the way that people are behaving towards these boys right now is payback because Carmelo isn't free. And those people are stupid. With that being said, y'all, I appreciate y'all stopping by today's stream. Thank you to everyone who supported the stream. We will be back with another one Until then, I will holla at y'all's laters and deuces.